Focus on him, yeah, I'm a hustler. The one thing on my mind and I don't mean to stop.
Gotta get to the top, we ain't playing. Always win, never flop, cause we're on the right track. Going 20 miles per hour, we don't look back. We just close our eyes whenever there's a red flag. Full acceleration, full thing when we play tag. When we play tag.
Got me on the hard tracks, I've been loving it. Riding day and night, yeah, we've been killing it. Gotta stay at the top, keep on winning. Humming season's over.
We're on the right track. Going 20 miles per hour, we don't look back. We just close our eyes whenever there's a red flag. Full acceleration, full thing when we play tag. When we play tag. We're on the right track. Going 20 miles per hour, we don't look back. We just close our eyes whenever there's a red flag. Full acceleration, full speed when we play tag. When we play tag.
This is iRacing.
Our story starts here. For 36 years, we've raced through its turns. We've slid tire after tire through its banking. We've drafted down its never-ending straightaways. We've gone faster than we ever thought we could. Here, in the racing capital of the world, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Today, hundreds of drivers will take to those historic turns. They will slide through that banking. They will draft down that straightaway. And they will take their shot to win here on the track that started our sim racing journey together. It's a race that demands skill, knowledge, and a little bit of luck. Because for us, this track and these cars, yeah, they may be virtual, but the next 500 miles of racing, that is real. Welcome to an iRacing special event unlike any other. Welcome to the iRacing Indy 500.
into legacy. This is your 5th running of the iRacing Indy 500 fix, and the stories are simply palpable. You look at 500 out there and you say, can I go around there quicker than anybody else can? The question will be, who writes their legacy here today in Speedway, Indiana? Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone watching around the world. My name is Jake Sperry. Alongside with me today for today's action is Joe Peak. And Joe, I am pumped, and I'm sure everybody watching also is, because this is one of the great races out there as we kick off this fantastic stretch of iRacing Indy 500 mania.
Well, much like the real thing, it's the greatest spectacle in virtual racing. It's one of the biggest, most important events on the iRacing special event schedule. It's the one that everybody wants to add to their list of accomplishments. So I'm sure you're going to see some real desperation from drivers that want to get to drink that milk.
They want to drink that milk. They want to kiss the yard of bricks. They want that moment of immortality here in sim racing. This is your special events calendar here with us on iRacing, and what we have been through so far and what we head to right now. We're here in the month of May, the Indy 500 Open coming up, the Coke 600 as well further on down the field. But in terms of what we have got, this might be the biggest special events calendar we have ever seen here with iRacing, which goes to show you just how wonderful, Joe, sim racing is and how varied it is.
Exactly. It's a real testament to what iRacing has done over the past many years, really bringing some great cars and great tracks to the service so that we can recreate all these incredible events. And like we said, as you can see, there's few bigger than Indy. As for today, we are in the midst of time slot number 3 that we're going to be covering here for the fixed. We've already had a couple on Saturday this morning that drivers have already taken part in. A lot of drivers have taken part. So some of them could be a little bit tired as well, as you are allowed to drive in multiple races if the first ones didn't go so well. In fact, I know of drivers in the past who have done as many as 15,000 miles, or 1,500 miles rather, I should say, over the course of a weekend, sometimes more than that if you're willing to do all 4 time slots. But hourly sessions run for the qualifying will give drivers a chance to try and break into this split, Jake.
Yeah, and there are so many great races that happen on Indy 500 weekend, and this is what happened yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. Split 1 was an all-important battle, and it was going to be one which was going to need to be won on the final lap of the race, and it was going to be a case of Hamilton Akabuezi who would manage to find the opportunity here. We focus on him in second position, and Joe, what was so crucial about this move here in top split running here of time slot number 1 was the case of how late you have to leave it to try and make a move happen.
Exactly, and we're going to see a lot of that today where we get down to the end. It'll be trying to set up that run down the back straightaway. It's possible to try to snipe somebody out of turn 4 to the finish line, but it's not easy. You want to try and set yourself up to try and get them out of 2, and you can see Akabuezi wound up coming home with the victory by a small margin today.
Yeah, you can see that just 1 car length was the difference by the time they crossed to the yard of bricks. Split 2 found itself with a very interesting situation. You don't often see this. There's no green-white checkers here in IndyCar style running. So the case was 1 lap shootout to decide who was going to take what. And it might have just been one of the greatest back stretches in all of sim racing we've seen for a very long time. And one battle, Joe, that I take a look at right now and say just how important it was always going to be. If you were Nicholas Isidro, this was the race for you. 4 wide to turn 3.
Yeah, a Hunter Ray-esque move there down to the inside to try and take it away, and it was a risk that worked out. You see that, and that might seem silly trying to go 4 wide, especially at a place like Indy, but you have to remember, this is not part of any sort of championship. This is all for that win, so no wonder everybody threw caution to the wind.
Yeah, they threw that caution. They knew how important it was going to be. And as they sat and as they waited and as opportunity brought itself into play, that was one of the great runs. But Split 4 also brought itself in, and you sense the desperation heading to the final lap. The limit pretty much as far as you could possibly put it for Konstantin Soldatov, who had to go to the absolute extremes here to try and hold on.
Yeah, this isn't stuff you're going to be seeing in real life anymore as they put the clamp down on at least going this far with the Dragon. But this has become a notorious move to try and take victory here at Indy, breaking the slipstream. It's not that he's trying to block him. He's just trying to cut off that draft.
Yeah, and if you can cut that off, if you can manage to avoid all of the dramas that befall those in front, that was as crucial as it gets. Almost finding the attenuator, a drag race to the line, and ultimately it's a case of, well, one tyre wheel was the difference maker that was there. A win for our NASCAR College iRacing Series driver from George Mason University, Zach Sprouse, deciding that his milk of choice that he pours over is chalky milk.
And quite a bit of chocolate milk. You can see he's got 2.5 gallons ready to go for it. At least the nice thing for him is that he can shower off very easily. The real drivers don't get that. But also had another big name that had a good day.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Malone coming to the line, channeling his inner Tony Kanaan, and he gets his opportunity to say in time slot 2 that he is an iRacing Indy 500 winner, and that a wonderful result for him as he was able to put himself into the pantheon of the most amazing drivers who were able to pick up the results that were there. There were so many winners over the course of action. This was time slot 1, and you can see here, this is just the first page of all your winners out there, and you look down these names, Joe, each and every single one of them has a story to tell of how they got to kiss the bricks.
Exactly. It's meaningful no matter which split you're in. I can attest to that. I once managed to get a podium it was top split in rookies one year in the Indy 500, and I got to mention on the iRacing main page for it. So yeah, the drivers are going to be absolutely valuing this win no matter if it's split 1 or split, as we see all the way down to 53. Remember, this is 33 cars in a split at the most, and probably going to have about that many with how many splits we have out here. So 32, 33 drivers. So that's a lot of drivers taking part.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of drivers when you consider it's 33 times 53 out there for how many drivers are there, and everybody has that huge opportunity, and they've gone and they have seized it. But that's just time slot 1, because we're here in time slot 3 and we're getting ourselves ready. This is how it looked in time slot 2. Ty Quiller picking up the result in split 1. Wayne Burke, a driver that I know very well over in the Australian side of sim racing, but it still doesn't take away from just how incredible all of these results are. All of these drivers would have different I ratings, different levels of ability to come in. The only difference maker for what puts them in what split was pure qualifying pace.
Exactly. One of the interesting things that they do here in this iRacing special event, it's not by your I rating, it is by your qualifying that you manage to get in there. We already have warm-up underway for split number 3 as our drivers are in there.
Yeah, we absolutely do, and as such, we now find ourselves then in a position to put some wonderful racing action into place. So as we take our little look then on board and have that search of what makes this Indy 500 so special, this might be a wonderful, wonderful group of drivers that's there. Peter Berryman is our focus right now, who has the fastest lap overall out of everybody at this stage in practice. He is a driver who has been so close, Joe, on so many occasions, and just wants that opportunity to say finally there can be a European winner overall since Cam Stark, a British and Irish winner since Cam Stark in 2015.
Yeah, and I mean, there's definitely been a number of Brits that have taken victory here, so it's not unusual to see that. In fact, much like in real life, you'll see a whole bunch of people from all over the world competing and taking victory here today. Now, as we take a look at the track itself, on the surface, so simple looking. It is just a ovular rectangle, if you will, 2.5 miles in length. All the banking is the same at 9.2 degrees, but every single corner race is different. You can ask any driver who's ever tried to tackle it, and they'll tell you the same. But big thing is 5/8 of a mile straightaways, big draft here, so that's going to play a big part into the race itself. And the other important thing, opened in 1909, first race in 1911, and the longest running race in America. This was the first North American track specifically built for racing that was opened.
And there is your car here, your Dallara IR18, a wonderful car which produces over 700 brake horsepower from a 2.2-litre twin-turbo V6 engine. To give you a comparison on what that's like in the road, imagine a Honda CR-V engine that produces 700 brake horsepower. It's crazy. You can see 230 plus miles an hour on the straight, and they know with the paddle shift gearbox that they've got, and they're running with 1,635 pounds of dry weight. This is a car that, simply put, everyone thinks they can drive, but it takes an eternity, Joe, to master.
Really does. It's a lot trickier than you think. You'd say, oh, it's just foot to the floor around there, right? Well, yeah, kind of, but it takes so much, especially in the fix, to try and make the difference and get the drivers as much speed as possible. Now, as for the race itself, again, sounds very simple, right? 200 laps. First one to finish those 200 laps, right? Well, it's a lot more complicated because you have to watch out for the cautions, for your pit windows. 30 to 34 laps is what we're expecting. More cautions can open up that pit window. And then, of course, all the way up to about 37 laps, pit speed limit. If we have green flag pit stops, 60 miles an hour. Do not speed on pit lane. It can make or break things. And unlike what we see in stock car racing, leader-controlled single file restart. So we're not going double file on these restarts. It is everybody nose to tail, and that's going to make it a little bit more difficult to get positions, which is going to be oh so important when we go back to green flag after a yellow.
It certainly will, and it's also worth reminding the rule that you can't overtake on the inside on the restarts. You have to overtake around at the outside, so we'll see a lot of drivers moving over right up to the wall as they go and get ready for that restart to take away the opportunity to go and make that overtake. But if you are brand new to us here with iRacing, you're watching this Indy 500 fix for the first time, you can experience INDYCAR on iRacing by visiting iRacing.com, where new members can save 40% off of a brand new membership. Start your sim racing journey today with us at iRacing. This is where legends are made. This is where history gets written. And this is where, if you win, you are remembered for all eternity. If you lose, you just have to try again next year to find your piece of immortality. Practice then for all of these drivers has just been put into the books, which means in the next couple of moments we can take ourselves down to the starting grid here from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we can get ourselves ready for racing action here from what is one truly incredible racetrack. And the pole position time was set in pre-qualifying, and they will grid by pre-qualifying, which means car number 4 will be on the pole position for action here today, which means Hamilton Akabwezi will be on pole position, looking to get 2 slots of victory here together today. And Joe, I am looking so forward to the qualifying battle that we've just had, which leads to the race battle, and why everyone needs to find qualifying times that gives them the best chance of winning today at the Brickyard.
Yeah, it's obviously not as important with the length of the race that you start on the pole position, but it definitely helps. Staying out of trouble early is one of the key parts of having victory here in the Indy 500, even in the virtual iRacing Indy 500. Being towards the back, there's so much more danger. It's so much easier to wind up getting caught up in incidents that aren't yours.
Oh, it very much is, as the iRacing sedan safety car will take its run around this fantastic 2.5-mile circuit. The field will now stack themselves up in double file as they look to get themselves ready and sort themselves in for what is an amazing amount of racing. It is Hamilton Akabuezi who has got the pole. WSR Esports butt kickers Lucas Prada is going to be alongside on that front row of the grid and will have every opportunity to go and make this his opportunity to go and make a chance to know. Peter Berryman and Jacob Oster will find themselves then on row number 2 with Adriano Pinheiro and Robert Malechka III looking to go for 3 consecutive Indy 500s in 6th position. Jaden Munoz and Brendan Lichtenberg are 7th and 8th. With Pedro Palladino 9th and Chris von der Nessa starting out your top 10. 11th will be Alexander van der Sant, and Otis Lawrence, a dark horse for this, will go from 12th.
Bico going to be starting next with Ferguson and Zwack, and there are some very familiar names going to be taking part. Of course, as you see, Pablo Espez, another one. Jason Brophy has been trying to win this race. So there's going to be a lot of really fast drivers hungry today.
And at the back of the field, Julian Klaffenbach, who is a D-class iRacing safety rating driver, who will look around and say, can I beat all the Class A drivers out there in this field, and say, this is what I am capable of. In comes the pace car. Barney waits with the green flag. Are you ready for the greatest spectacle that sim racing can offer? Because it's a green flag in the air, and we're underway at Indianapolis. Stages off the end of turn 1. Brilliant action then as they exit towards turn 2. And now the backstretch for the first time. Single file through the first 7 or 8. Jaden Munoz, the one who has to fall into line. 3 wide. They go. Big moves coming as there goes Malechka up to 3rd.
And those first 2 corners are always really the big problem zone. So glad to see everybody make it through that nice and clean. They've got their heads screwed on tight here. But like you said, you're going to see aggressive moves because with this being fixed setup, everybody is going to have their best chances to make positions on the start and the restarts.
They absolutely are. Akabuezi then holding control and looking to do what he was able to do in time slot 1 earlier on yesterday and pick up a victory here at this wonderful circuit. Prada in 2nd, Malechka now to 3rd. It's then Berryman and Oster 4th and 5th. And you look around, Lichtenberg up to 6th. Pinheiro hasn't had the best of starts. He's dropped a couple places, and you might see the high line working out here early. Peter Berryman trying to work it through turn 4 and make it happen a bit further back in the pack. We now start to look at the likes of Daniel Ferguson, who's made a great start and has gained 3 places here. Looking at Pedro Palladino just behind him, Alexander van der Sant.
You can see most of them trying to get single file. Now, early on in the race, before you start to get too many marbles, you can maybe sometimes ride on the upper lane, but it's going to get more and more difficult as the race goes on and as the racing line rubbers in. So we're seeing some moves made, but eventually you do want to try and start to get single file and maybe try and save some fuel, because until you see what sort of atmosphere you're going to have in this race, you want to try and save fuel, because more options on your pit strategy is always more ideal.
And just behind Van der Sant is Bico, as now they trade again at the front. Akabuezi goes by Lucas Prada and then takes the race lead back once again. And you'll see a lot of this tandem running at the front of the field, where drivers don't want to lead this race outright. The slipstream is far too strong for a driver to just run away into the distance. So you've got to play patience. You've got to work with someone. And Prada, as a Czech driver, now making his charge back down to the inside at turn 3. And every 2 corners leads another opportunity.
Yeah, each corner going to be so important. And that's the other thing, is just always focusing on hitting your marks. Yes, there's at times it's going to be go time, but for the most part, make sure and focus on your race. Look at what you're doing. Don't worry about what the others are doing quite as much. As Akabuezi will move back into the lead once again. Remember, he's got that experience of how to take victory already from today. So I have a feeling that will really help them as we take a look at what is very warm track conditions.
113 degrees Fahrenheit on track, and it's fixed weather conditions out there for the Indy 500 fixed that we've got at this moment, which means that these drivers know this track is not going to change in terms of its temperature. They are going to have to deal with these hot conditions, which indicates that there's a lot more understeer at play, and they're going to have to work very hard with the anti-roll bars and the weight jacker to give themselves every opportunity to get the turn and the rotation in the car. A little look back there from Jacob Oster trying to move up to 4th position. Peter Berryman happy about his placement at the moment in 4th, but as they take the back stretch here once more and look to charge, this is the feeling out process of this race. Everybody wants to settle into a rhythm early, get some green flag running down. The one thing they are all trying to avoid is an early caution, because it sets the tempo for the race.
Exactly, and as long as you're not losing the leaders, you're in good shape. These guys very close to the top drivers, so I think they know they don't need to try to make any crazy moves. And especially seeing Akabuezi and Prada kind of swapping back and forth right now, it looks like as we ride on board with Oster, it's all pretty much business as usual here. Nothing too crazy happening. But Jacob, another face that we tend to see a lot here in the top split of the iRacing Indy 500.
We absolutely do. Team I5G, which has such a wonderful reputation at a series like this. A little scuff there off the wall as they go through, and now looking around, you've got to say, what more? Pablo Espes, the Spanish driver out there at the moment, he's looking to try and run on forward, and he is such a talented driver, from anything from an MX-5 right up to the top level of open wheel. Pablo Espes is quick with a capital Q.
Yeah, and honestly, you'd say, well, the fast drivers are usually fast in everything. Yes, but remember, the IndyCar is a bit of a specialist machine, especially on the oval side. Not as often you see open wheels on ovals anymore. It's becoming less and less frequent, even though that's really what North American racing, especially oval racing, was based on. And then, of course, Jason Brophy, always looking for that victory here.
He's really trying to find what makes it work, and he knows what it takes to get up there. He knows what it takes to be close, but close is not enough in a race like this. He'll want to try and find victory here. Lap 9 out of 200, and he's starting to stare down the likes of Rafael Eckert in front of him and Michael Berg, who are starting to take those alternative lines, and you'll see quite a lot of that in a race like this. Drivers trying to just get out of the dirty air to take a slightly different line to go through. Little bit of launches through from a different position. Pablo Espes trying to get the pass done on Matthew Zwack, a pro-stripe driver here in iRacing, trying to get that move done. Not happening, but just at this moment, the middle of this group continues to sit down and say, you know what, we're not going to be in a position where we can go and make stuff happen to make the overtake too wide doesn't work. So let's sit in and make the fuel game work, because this is a race eternally known for counting back.
Exactly. Once we get to that point, you'll hear us talking about it a lot. But the big difference with this one is the fixed setup. Everybody's on the same thing. So what does that mean? Well, they can't change the aero to help that fuel, but they can change things such as the fuel mapping. And that can play a big part later on in the race. Probably not going to see it as much here, but drivers can try and adjust it to get a little bit better of fuel mileage. That means most of what you're going to be seeing is drivers using that slipstream to lift and coast a little bit.
If drivers get desperate towards the end, if this becomes a fuel save run, we might see the likes of fuel maps from 2 towards 5. We might not see 6 or 7. If you're desperate, that changes how the throttle gets applied, and as they go through, that becomes difficult. Lucas Prada moves back to the point then and gives himself the race lead for the moment. Happy in the sense that you've got Akabuezi there behind. RM3 sits in 3rd position. Robert Malechka the 3rd, and hoping hoping to get through. Akabuezi behind at the stripe, but moving to the inside at turn 1, making it nice and easy. This dance is one that these two drivers have known many a time before, and I would say, at least for the moment, the top 7 in this race, I think, have the clearance that they want. It's only when you get to about 8th and Chris von der Nesse that you start thinking, okay, maybe that gap's getting a little bit elongated, and I might be slightly concerned. Another transfer of positions then from the race lead back to 3rd.
Yeah, Malechka has the patience for this. Remember, coming off the win in the Open and Fixed last year, and in the Open was down to 0.02 of a second, so he knows that what really counts is coming to the line there at the end. But we continue to see Prada and Akabuezi just trading back and forth, and I'm kind of curious what that will do for their fuel mileage, because usually the wisdom goes that if you're just staying up front, you're pushing the air, you're going to have worse fuel mileage. So they're honestly kind of doing this interesting play well together thing where they're both going to get a little bit of better mileage, but it's also not going to be better than what you see for Robert.
It's the best of both worlds, but let's listen in to what makes this place so amazing. Let's go iRacing, full throttle. Busy a little bit further back around Adriano Pinheiro and Brendan Lichtenberg, who's there in 6th position. Here's a little bit of an interesting thing for you here, Joe, to note. Brendan Lichtenberg's spotter is a former iRacing Indy 500 winner in Christopher Demerit.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so again, having that sort of knowledge and wisdom behind you is honestly very, very helpful. There's so many nuances here to Indy. Having someone that can give you little tips and advise you, because you have to remember, when you're just in the car, you're kind of in the heat of the moment, you're going on the adrenaline, your decisions aren't always great. Having that spotter to help kind of suggest certain things or help you make decisions in the moment in terms of pit stop can be huge. So we'll see whether or not Lichtenberg has an edge because of that.
Yeah, and that edge might be important, that experience of knowing how to make a result like this happen in the clutch. When you get to those final laps, experience becomes invaluable out there, and there are a number of drivers who have a spotter today. Daniel Falkingham has his spotter. Jarrett Liebert, who's going to be alongside him. Hamilton Akabuezi, who is there up at the front, has Christian Hildgo giving every opportunity then to help out. Peter Berryman's got the very familiar voice in his ear of Mark Tranter helping him out. Kevin Birrell's got Sam Carasala, who was very close to making this split himself. Eric O'Connor's got Sam Blackwood, who is going to be helping him out. And then Otis Lawrence has Akos Shenteski, who is helping out. And Otis Lawrence might be a dark horse for this race if we start getting cautions. Here is a driver who has a lot of experience out there as Lucas Prada takes the race lead again.
Yeah, they're just going to continue doing that, I'm pretty sure, but we'll see how long it lasts and also what the pit stops are going to do to it, because we're at least halfway in to this first stint. The other thing that I find intriguing, Jake, is I was looking through our movers. The biggest movers are only 3 positions, so either it's proving difficult to get very far, or we do have a lot of very patient drivers at this stage.
Well, one of your biggest movers is Daniel Ferguson in the number 23 car for WSR Esports Butt Kicker. He's there behind Pedro Palladino at the moment, and it's proving to be a tough start. These hot conditions are going to make life very difficult for overtaking to happen, and I think that's where we sit at this early stage of the race. No one's going to want to risk their race this early. No one's going to be looking at the 50% move, the 20% move. They're all thinking, how do I get a 90 to 100% success rate move move sorted out there on circuit. I think that's the key. There is Daniel Ferguson out on circuit. He now sits himself pretty, I would say comfortably just outside of the top 10. And this is where you want to be in this first stint. Comfortable. Once you're comfy, you can start working on how you want to move through the field.
Exactly. And moreover, if you find yourself comfortable and really unable to try and move forward that easily, my main focus right now would be that fuel number. Try to stretch it as far as you can. Like I said, the more that you open up options on your pit strategy, the better off you are. You want to be able to choose, to pick and choose, okay, what's going to be ideal, rather than basically being locked in to, well, I have to make this choice because there's no other option.
And speaking of big choices there, over the last two turns, Robert Malechka III has decided he is going to put the hammer down. Moves to the front for the first time in this race, past Akabuezi, past Lucas Prada, and saying that he is going to be the yardstick that everyone has to beat when you've won the last two time slot Indy 500s here on iRacing, both open and in fixed. He is someone who is going to do well. When he's done that last year, he has been absolutely fantastic. But this is what he did last year, and the amazing battling, Joe, he had to go to win when it came to the iRacing Indy 500 fixed.
Yeah, and part of that was dealing with a lot of cautions. But it was very similar to what we're seeing here. It was clean racing up until lap 68 for this group. So, like we said, it could still play out very similarly, but there was just so many yellows late in this race. In fact, their second one only came at 47 to go. Big part of it, too, was these pit stops. A lot of green flag stops means that you really have to nail that pit entry. Definitely saw a few drivers wind up with black flags.
We certainly did. Speeding on the lane was going to be important. There were a lot of similarities to last year's fixed running compared to this one. For example, Akabuezi on pole position, but it was about where you find the opportunity late, because it was a case of Trost finding himself with contact at 3 wide. Gustavo Ariel caught up in it, and you could see it right there with some very hefty incidents that came along out there. But it was a late surge from Malechka that gave the victory to him late on, rather than what we're seeing here, a case of trying to run from the front.
Exactly. He made some critical passes, and we talked about this earlier. There are no green-white checkers. This is IndyCar style rules. So him moving forward like we're seeing on this gave him the right place at the right time. In fact, very late, where he made the move for the lead there, 3 wide, and then the caution came out and there was no restart available. This is what ended it all.
That one moment means that under caution, it was a case of picking up a second Indy 500 broadcasted in a row for RM3, and looking here at private label team height to try and get one more in to make it 3 consecutive out there at the moment. You see him right now, ever the face of concentration as he runs through lap 24 here of 200. We talk about this normally being a 5 versus a 6 stop race out there, in the sense that 30 laps is pretty much the benchmark, Joe, that we see for a pit stop, but drivers look to try and extend it. 32, 33, any further than that and you're in 5-stop territory.
Exactly, and I wonder if that's partially what motivated this choice from Robert to try and move forward again. And I wanted to emphasize a choice. Remember how long he was just sitting there in 3rd place, just waiting, and he made a bunch of positions, well, relatively a bunch of positions. He was up 3 to get there into that 3rd spot. Now he's kind of swapping back and forth with Akabuezi. But when he moved, it was because he decided to move. It wasn't like something happened and, oh, now's my opportunity. It's, well, it's time to go, and so I'm going to go now. So I think this is very much, he is running to a plan, and he wants to be where he is.
Certainly does, from Club Michigan now, as he goes down the inside at turn 3 to try and make this move, and manages to get that pass with a nice bit of ease as he sorts it out here, as we already find ourselves 25 laps clear of 200 laps worth of racing, which, if you're doing your math, is about 1/16 of the race distance already scored complete. As into turn number 1 goes the move of Hamilton Akabuezi to get this pass. But this is a place, Joe, that that everyone thinks it's just 4 corners that are exactly the same. They are 4 corners of 4 very different personalities.
Exactly, and you always have to take that into consideration depending on what you're trying. Like here, it's pretty wide open into turn 3. That's why you see a lot of these passes in here, and drivers maybe get a bit more brave. Same thing, 4, it is relatively easy, but it is so critical that you get the run off of it, because down into turn 1, you don't want to be side by side. This is the trouble spot. Turn 1 is known for being extremely narrow, both visually because of the stands here, and also just it drives differently. And so seeing this move, Akabuezi obviously not put off by that. He's going to easily move to the inside. But when it gets down to the end of the race, that'll be tough. Exit of 2 here, that's the trouble one, as the drivers will often drift up into the outside wall or sometimes get loose as we watch from on board O'Connor here. So turn 2 can often see a lot of bad wrecks. And the big thing is, if you hit it, sometimes it spits you back across the track and you can get caught up in someone else's problem.
You certainly can. Look at that virtual reality there for Eric O'Connor. He cannot get more invested into being a driver here than he is right now, and he follows, looking to try and see from the other side of the halo system here, and of course the screens that are there to protect the in-car driver that's there through turn number 1, staring down Alessandro Bico, who has pretty much done everything there possibly is to do when it comes to racing action in iRacing. The one thing that Bico needs to find is maybe a victory. That might be the only thing missing from his resume.
We saw on Eric O'Connor, part of Club Indiana. I mean, this is a part of Hoosier blood. If you're from Indiana, this race means so much. And Alessandro Bico might be Italian, but I'm sure he's just as passionate about it. And boy, is he really using up every inch of the track. You can see just a little puff of smoke as the netcode maybe seemed to think that he had touched the wall, but it looks like he's okay. So I imagine he'll be able to carry on just fine. But Bico, another one of those drivers that has been around on iRacing for a long time, racing at this high level, so he knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. He's been there before in many high-pressure situations, in many championships that we have seen over the course of iRacing, and he wants to go up to the point and prove a point. Akabuezi, then we go back on board with lap 29 about to start lap 30. Now you start looking at who's going to be diving off to the left coming out of turn 4 and making that first green flag pit stop of the day. Akabuezi moves back to the point, and this is where it gets interesting for Akabuezi here, because I look around and say, well, if I'm losing the move into turn 3, I can never get track position coming into the pits.
Exactly, and I don't know how much it's going to mean here. Frankly, I'm a bit surprised that they're still swapping this much, especially if you're Malechka. Yes, he wants to lead, but I feel like it would make so much more sense to save fuel as we see Hamilton coming down in, locked up the wheels, but I think he should be okay. And let me check. Yeah, he doesn't have a black flag, so he's good.
Yep, so Hamilton, Akabuezi, no surprises being on the front for as long as he was, is going to be the first taker into the pits. And it becomes this game, effectively, of chess. How much do you want to lead to win the Indy 500? Because the longer that this goes green, the more likely being at the front is a penalty, essentially, instead of being a boon. Because, yes, when you're at the front, you're leading, but you're burning a lot more fuel than your rivals around.
Well, and the other positive to being able to stay out as long as possible is when you pit, while you are the leader, you're unlikely to get lapped. There's still that chance that you could have the leaders come back around and put you a lap down. And as long as you're a lap down, there's also no lucky dogs over on this version. So you have to get that lap back the hard way. You want to run as long as possible to avoid getting trapped, just in case we get a yellow during the pit sequence.
So the pit window, we expect lap 30 to 34. On 30, Akabuezi. On 31, Lucas Prada. Everybody else trying to move up. They can go as far as 37 laps, we believe, if they're on a maximum fuel save run out there. And now we're starting to see more drivers make the stop. Here comes RM3 to dissipate away from the race lead and make his first pit stop here of your 2025 iRacing Indy 500 fixed.
That's only 3 drivers so far that have come in. Everybody else is on that fuel save strategy, which doesn't surprise me. Like I said, that'd be the call I'd be making if I wasn't up at the front. Just use that draft as much as you can to extend this first stint. So I'm expecting to see most of them try to aim for that 35 lap mark.
Well, 35 laps, I think, would be a very, very cool place for most drivers to come in. It's a nice, easy number for them to go as in comes Peter Berryman. Now for a first lap led for Jacob Oster here in this race. And Berryman is followed in by Brendan Lichtenberg into the pits, but just two making the decision to dive down into the pits. As now in comes Aaron Vasquez and Otis Lawrence and Pablo Lazar. Jose Soria is also jumping in. Now we're starting to get some bulk drivers in the pits.
Yep, so lap 34 or coming on to lap 34 seems to be the number that most of them are hitting. Well, not most of them. I say that. We still have 23 drivers that have yet to pit. So a lot of them will get to that 35 lap mark, it looks like, as it sits now. Jacob is indeed coming in this time, commits and gets down to the cones. Now, the other thing to remember about all this fuel stuff is it compounds. If you're, say, 2 laps earlier than those around you the first one, that becomes 4 laps the next time. Third pit stop, that's 6 laps, and so on and so forth. So that's why you really need to focus from early on, trying to extend that stint.
Malechka very heavy on the radio saying take it to Hamilton Akabuezi. Needed him to go through. Black flag penalty for Jose Soria. So he's been caught on pit exit, it looks like, as he leaves. So he's going to have to come back in again.
That is a real shame. Maybe just got off of the limiter a little bit too early. He was in a multi-wide situation out of there, so maybe just a bit too eager in that situation. The Brazilian Palladino is going to hit his marks and come down pit lane for his fuel. Ooh, that was quite aggressive from that green and black machine there. Didn't make out who that was.
No, it was very, very close, but no penalty called, and so it's very easy to find in trouble. But it is a missed box for Jason Brophy, who was aggressive there on the brake. So he's overshot it, and that's what often gets missed when you're out there running. Daniel Falkingham, by the way, the last driver to come in, 36 laps. He's going to go. He's got a lot of oval experience as Daniel. He's been out there and a lot of people know what he's capable of doing, more rather when it comes to a stock car than it does when it comes to open wheel. But the New Englander now sitting down and saying, I will go longer than everybody else. What sort of statement does that make?
You have to remember that these cars are doing 218, 219 miles an hour average speed around here each lap. So if a driver misses their pit stall, that's going to be hugely costly under green flag racing. So yeah, Brophy missing out is going to not only cost him multiple positions, but honestly put him a little bit on the back foot here. So he'll be regretting that one as Akabuezi and Malechka continue their little game up at the front.
They certainly do, and they're now starting to put a couple of cars a lap down. That's Julian Klaffenbach, who's there behind them at 1 lap down here in this race, and out of the pits, they're just in front of them is Jose Soria, who is about to go 2 laps down here in this race, as there goes Malechka to the inside, taking that one away from Akabuezi, and now the group starts to coalesce behind. And we see this quite a bit here. When there's lap cars in the group, it actually creates a stronger tow as you go along these straights. And so when you've got drivers in a group along with you, doesn't matter where they are in terms of the race, the more drivers in the train, the easier it gets.
Man, Daniel Falkingham making it to lap 36 to 37 there on his stint, the only driver that managed to do that. So keep an eye on the number 2. Could be a real interesting one if we get later on and he's able to repeat that as time goes on. As we check our leaders again.
Yeah, they find themselves in play. We are going to take a little look. This is what happened to Jason Brophy out there. And Joe, we say it every year. It happens every year. Someone's going to go straight through their box. You've got to turn away from going on asphalt to concrete and having that mix. You can see the back step out, and he goes forward by about a wheel.
Yeah, you have to remember, you're not using those brakes really around here if you're driving it right. So you got to be ready to try and anticipate how that is going to behave on the way into the pit box, and practice it too. Practice your pit entry, practice your pit exit, maximizing that stuff, especially the more we get this green flag racing, it'll pay huge dividends. In laps and out laps can make or break your race.
And speaking of make or break the race, look at that gap between Acablazy and Lucas Prada. It's a second and a half out there. The good news out there for Prada is that Jose Soria can be used as a pick, but that gap is very dangerous to braking, and we could have two running away at the front of this field so long as you look around and say that nobody can find a run to get them back by strategy.
And the big difference there, Prada, I'm showing 10 seconds in his box compared to Malechka, 9.3, and Acablazy, 9.7. So a little bit slow compared to his rivals. In fact, one of the slower out of everybody that we saw out of Lucas Prada, and that can wind up making a big difference, depending on how long we go under green flag racing. We made it through the first stint, and we're already well into this second one. There you can see that is not Prada behind them. That is a lapped car currently separating them, Jose Soria, after his penalty. But Jose could act as a sort of leapfrog, a stepping stone, if he can just pick up the slipstream off of him.
Yeah, and that is going to be the crucial matter of fact. Can you get to the car in front, and how close can you manage it? I just saw very close in the back of shot there, Jacob Oster and Julian Klaffenbach there trying to get the clearance sorted. It took a long time for Berryman to get by over the last couple of laps, and it's brought that next group together of the likes of Lichtenberg and Pinheiro and Munoz, who are all there together. But at least for the moment, this group, this secondary group right now, that sits itself very happy and looks at this race, they'll think, okay, we're very much in with a shot. Anybody who's inside the top 10 will feel comfortable that they're in the top 10. It's everyone else behind that starts looking around at what they do. Huge gap, by the way, behind Jaden Munoz, about 4 seconds to the group that contains Van der Sant and Van der Nessa.
Yeah, this is where maybe you should worry a little bit more if you're in that middle group. I got to start making some moves. I got to unleash the pace in this car. There are other things you can change, even though it is fixed setup, to try and find a little bit of pace. And you honestly will want to be doing them throughout the stint. The white tracker is the big one. Being able to use that throughout the stint to help the handling of the car will also help the speed. It's not the tires so much that you're worried about in this setup. It's just the handling and being able to really launch off those corners and make sure to keep yourself out of trouble. So stay on top of those tools throughout the stint if you want to get the most out of it.
And speaking of which, Adriano Pinheiro is a driver who is starting to get a little bit extended. We saw a little look there in the back of shot trying to get by Brendan Lichtenberg for places. They now have to battle by Klaffenbach to try and gain a bit of place. And this is sometimes what makes life very difficult for certain drivers out there. It's one skill to qualify a car fast. It's another skill to go and race a car fast. And when you fall down a lap early, you know you're in for a long race.
Exactly, yeah, it's definitely a different one trying to hop out here amongst other cars. And at least you don't have to try and set it up. As you can see, still some close side-by-side racing there. And I think maybe a little bit into the wall as well. Who was that we saw?
That was Klaffenbach. So that would have been the lap traffic there, trying to clear by Jaden Munoz. And Munoz, who was trying to do everything possible there in the Williams Esports Dallara, out there on track, just about gets the clearance to Klaffenbach. But you've got to be so careful each and every time you're going around these corners with every car that's there. You do have a lot of work that goes through and that gets this car to be at the level that it needs to be. But that AA arm pushrod suspension is not going to hold up if you continually find a little bit of contact here or there with this wall. This track bites back, and it does so subtly.
Sometimes not so subtly, if we're honest. You can make a tiny mistake and it'll suddenly really hurt you. And essentially, in your race out there, we have to remember that in this special event, there are no free repairs waiting for you. There's no spare car sitting in the garage. So if you wind up with damage, you're going to have to either sit there and take repairs, hope that you can stay on the lead lap, or basically just pack it up and go home.
Chris Van der Nessa getting the pass on Alexander Van der Sant out there. Van der Sant from Club Indiana, from Club Benelux. Chris Van der Nessa. Now, here's a little interesting tidbit of a fact for you here, Joe. The difference of understanding here where Van der Nessa is from is actually whether it's a capital or a lowercase v in Van der Nessa. It's actually lowercase when it comes into the sim, which indicates that it's Dutch origin rather than Belgian.
Yeah, and I love the variety of nations that we have represented. Benelux, as you mentioned, is out here. We've seen Brazil, obviously a lot of U.S. drivers competing Central Eastern Europe club is represented out there, a lot of Club Iberia, couple Indiana. One of my favorites, Club Ohio. Driver that usually we see over in the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends, Lucas Lodato, is out here, hailing from Cincinnati.
Yeah, so Lodato here down in 24th position at the moment as we focus on Fondanessa right now in the number 21 machine here, trying to keep everything sorted. And then you've got in front Alexander van der Sant there, who leads this group in 10th position, but they've got a lot of work to do, and we'll see a lot of this trading here, this duo trading. They're bringing Pedro Palladino along, Daniel Ferguson, Alessandro Bico, and Aaron Vasquez along for the ride. Got some very talented drivers back there. For example, Aaron Vasquez has 12,500 GT iRating.
Very much up there, that is for sure. Yeah, it's a pretty steep iRating up at the front of the field on this one. As we check back in, just behind them, and that's trying to play catch-up, is Vasquez. He can see that group of cars. He's within that slipstream, so hopefully he should be able to catch back up as he pulls it off the wall a bit. Does not want to get too close to that concrete.
No, he really doesn't. I heard something really interesting over the radio there from Alexander van der Sant, which was an interesting thing that said, you can go flat out if you want through turn 4. I think they're trying to work together to bring the group back because they're now at 4.5 seconds, but Vasquez continuing to bring himself close here. He's got Otis Lawrence right behind him.
And we've got our first stint length for all of our drivers. So they're up at the front. Yeah, look at how much more fuel they're using. All you have to do is go back to Berryman and you jump up to 34 laps on that stint. Malechka doing a decent job at 33 at least. But this is not their current stint, mind you. This is their first stint, what we were looking at on your screen.
Yep, so you see there that drivers like Robert Malechka able to do 33 laps and get himself close. But if you do 33 laps 6 times in this race, you get to 198 out there. So you need to be hitting 34 laps consistently, at least twice with a couple of 33s, and then you're good to save an extra pit stop late in this race. Should this go green all the way as they go through. 19th now, the battle on, because you've got the likes here of Matthew Zwack, who's just dropped the place now as Raphael Eckert now gets himself through, gets the move done, and the former driver there, Matthew Zwack, now bringing himself into play. Michael Berg and Lorenzo Manfredotti behind us. Now here comes the change again to 3.
Yep, racing with fenders always just a little bit different than these open wheelers, but still you see a lot of these drivers doing pretty well. And we should see them a lot because the Coke 600 is going to be coming up soon. And we have, of course, all kinds of special events. You can check out that Coke 600 and many others here on the iRacing.com/special events. There you see the Coke 600 on its way. A grueling race. You wouldn't think 100 more miles would make that much of a difference, Jake, but I can tell you, both from a commentator's and from a driver's standpoint, it's a lot.
It's a marathon, the Coke 600, and it's one which you have to be at your A game to go and get yourself to the top at. So if you want the chance to jump in, May 21 to 21st to 26th is the time where you can jump in at Charlotte Motor Speedway for that, as we now are over 1/4 of the way through in this race, and it has gone by so quickly. Just 35 minutes and 45 seconds it's taken to do 51 laps here of this Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and that puts us on course here, Joe, for what looks like to me about a sub 220.
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a quick one, but you never know, because remember, we said that it took until lap 68 to get our first caution, and then we had a whole bunch of other ones after that in last year's fixed 500. So don't count out anything. The complexion of this race can so easily change from the front to the back, but look at these top two continuing to hold off Prada. He's got it down to 1.3 seconds. He's gained about 0.2 since we last looked at it. So that's a little bit, but it's not enough. He's going to get closer.
But it's still great work from Lucas Prada. He is still getting there, and he's doing well, especially considering that Soria is keeping himself in play. More scrapping back there as Fondanessa goes through on Alexander van der Sant to make that pass back through once again. That changing that continues on for the top 10. But as soon as we've talked about it and given itself a bit of time, they are going to start thinking about pit stop. In the next, I would say, 10 laps or so, we're going to start seeing a lot of drivers finding themselves back in for their second round of green flag pit stops out there. You can see a lot of struggle coming out there of turn 2 from Chris van der Nessa. You can really tell how much the dirty air affects as you go around here.
And more than that, turn 2, part of the problem there, as he washes up coming out of 3 as well. So yeah, van der Nessa very much feeling it at this stage. Coming into turn 2, you take such a shallow entry compared to the others. You turn in so early, and that makes it more difficult to try and see where you're exiting out as we swap around once again. There you can see how close they get, and that's why so many drivers wind up hitting that wall, because you have a little bit less of a gauge on the way in than you do on the way out to try and figure out how close you're going to go.
You certainly do, and it's worth reminding you, ladies and gentlemen, that even with this Indy 500 that we've got with Split 1, we have so much great racing and some amazing splits. We got 45 different splits available to all of these drivers, and we are going to be with you as long as it takes to make sure everyone has got their finish. So if this one finishes early, good news, ladies and gentlemen, you get more Indy 500s out there for you as you get to the end, and I think that gives you all of the great insight of Indy 500 weekend #1 here in iRacing.
And don't forget, if you're watching that and saying, oh, well, I'm not going to be competitive in one of these, 45 splits, you're probably going to be paired up with people that are close on pace with you. As long as you put a qualifying time down that's representative, you're going to be around other drivers that are on similar pace. So you're going to have a good time, and you're going to have timed, on iRating, but and iRating, the drivers are split on this one. But yeah, iRacing does a fantastic job, especially on these major events, to make sure that you're going to be able to go out and race other people and not just spend 3 hours by yourself.
Absolutely. It's not a lonely experience when you're here with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, especially with us here at iRacing. It gives you such a great chance to say that, yes, we want all the drivers that you are with when it comes to your qualifying times, yes, and then if you've all got the same time, we'll split you out by your iRating, so those with higher iRating have a better chance to drive with higher iRating drivers out there. So there's your little advantage to go race official out there, ladies and gentlemen. But at least for the moment, it has still been that chop and change at the front of Malechka the third and Hamilton Akabuezi, two drivers who've got two streaks that they're trying to hit at the moment. When you've got Akabuezi, who won in time slot 1 split 1, looking to win time slot 3 split 1, and then Robert Malechka the third going for 3 consecutive broadcast Indy 500s in a row, you start sitting down and saying that for one, or if not both of them, history is on the line.
That's a big one. That's a tall order, but you can see how good he is at this place already up to the front, just continuing to just trade back and forth. Prada's now got it down to about 1.1, 1.2, so he is pulling him back in, and the closer he gets to the lapped car of Soria, the easier it's going to be, because it'll the draft will start to have an effect.
It certainly will. We look back here to Daniel Falkingham, and this is the perfect time to see a driver of his caliber out there, because we are not too far away, just 2 weeks away from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, bringing itself back in after the break. Welcome to Charlotte Motor Speedway on the 20th of May. Join us at 8 p.m. Eastern for that, as we see who is going to become champion there. I know it's been a fantastic season so far for the likes of Stephen Wilson and co. So who is going to stand up and say they are going to be eNASCAR Series champion?
Falkingham feeling pretty good about himself in the promo, obviously. Excited to get to be a part of this fantastic series. I gotta say, Jake, anybody got your eye this season over in the Coke Series?
Stephen Wilson. I think you can't look at the way that he started the season. He has had a brilliant start to this season. Everyone's got to look. And pit stop's happening, because in comes Hamilton Akabuezi then. Just 30 laps in, so he's done 30 for 30 as he's gone through the first 2 lots. And so he is definitely staring down the barrel of needing at least a 20-lap stint to finish the race.
I wonder if he's simply playing the odds on this one, because odds are we're going to get a yellow. We're not going to go green from start to finish. So he's thinking, you know what, I might as well just go flat out and not worry about that fuel save. Again, that removes options. You put yourself under the gun just in case of that situation. But I don't think it's completely unprecedented for him to do that.
I'd quite like a fully green wire-to-wire Indy 500, Joe. So I think as we sit at this stage, I think it's going to be important. In comes Malechka then, who immediately follows in. Now remember, he did 33 laps on his opening stint. Here, a little bit different. So that would have indicated that certainly hasn't gone for the stint the way that Malechka the third would have wanted, as he's now only able to get 1 lap's advantage as he dives in. Lucas Prada's done very well on fuel on this stint.
I've done private league Indy 500s where they've gone green from start to finish, and that's with a full field too. So it wasn't like 12 cars tootling around or something like that. So yeah, it's possible, and I wouldn't put it against drivers of this caliber managing it. I also wouldn't bet on it. So let me put it that way, because something could so easily happen. And I look forward to the open setup race coming a little bit later on as well.
Absolutely. That will be in 1 week's time on May 17th. You can join us at 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. GMT to see the best setups in town get put, to see who can put pedal to the metal quickest and pick up one of the most prestigious awards out there in the world of sim racing, the iRacing Indy 500 Open, which will be coming up very, very soon with us here on iRacing. In comes Lucas Prada then to make his stop on lap 63. It hands the race lead over to Peter Berryman.
We saw go at least decently far on the last one. He's on 30 laps into this stint, so he's still got a ways before that finishes out. Falkingham still on lap 26 means we could see another 10 laps before the number 2 car makes his way down pit lane. Prada is going to take his fuel and tires, and there's no limit on tires in this one, so every pit stop, you pretty much want to take him. Now, hearing that the 13 car may have hit the wall.
Yeah, this will be Pedro Palladino, and we'll take a look here. Oh, coming. Oh, that's not great. Going through 3 into 4. It's very easily done out there on track. It's just a case of catching the wrong groove, and by the looks of things, got away with one.
Got away with it, at least visually. We don't know if that's changed in the geometry of the suspension, that maybe it's handling a little bit differently. Maybe it's hurt his top speed. Maybe something about the way it handles in the corners is different. So we'll have to watch and see. And he'll at least have a pit stop coming soon, so he should be able to repair it if there's any needed.
41.398 for Pedro Palladino on that last lap. In now dives Peter Berryman here on lap 65, the end of. So I'd say he's on course at the moment, and he's followed in by Brendan Lichtenberg. Chris von der Nessa will also dive in. Jacob Oster, no surprises now, takes control of the race lead. We are firmly in the pit cycle.
Exactly, and if those drivers who have pitted early see a yellow come out, they're in big trouble right now. Now, granted, they can try and stay out and get their lap back, but of course they're going to be kind of slotted towards the back of the field on that one. So again, you want to try and go as long as possible during this stint to keep yourself out of that danger zone. Lichtenberg gets back out on track. It looks like we're still waiting on about 20 drivers or so that need to pit in.
And talk to me, Joe, here about pit exit, because it's one of the more unique ones that you find on the iRacing service, because you dive in quite happily out of turn number 4, but you have to go down on the infield all the way. You wait for turn 2, you run through the short chute on the inside to give you that launch to put the power down off the exit.
It's honestly one of the trickier pit exits. You can't just go foot to the floor. You'll see if a driver tries to do that, because they're going to spin out immediately. There is a big bump on the exit that will basically upset the car.
Yep, it certainly will be, as we now see more drivers in. Jacob Oster dives in with Pinheiro, with Jaden Munoz. Aaron Vasquez now is a lap down and looking to push, but now it puts Daniel Ferguson in control. We keep an eye on these drivers as they dive down into the pits, but look now out to your brand new race leader, and Daniel Ferguson trying to extend it a little bit longer.
I think we're going to take another look at Palladino here. Palladino, excuse me. So let's watch the replay and see what it looked like from on board. Oh. Okay, so the tire looks like it stays where it was. We saw it move a little bit, but the server read it again and said, okay, no, it didn't actually adjust that suspension. So may have gotten away with it, but I don't think he'll be completely clean. He'll maybe feel a bit of the effects.
Yeah, that's going to hurt as we get more takers in, like Brophy, Lodato, Clough is going to dive into the pits, Tamash Simon for Sesha Esports is in, Nathan Paris also taking service now at this point. Now, this becomes an interesting game for those who stay out longer because, yes, the drivers around will have better tyres and are able to pull away, but if you get drivers who come out right in front of you, that's an extra little bit of slipstream that you get to work with, and that can be a huge benefit to the fuel save game.
100%. Yeah, you want someone to be able to work with. It's not quite like Talladega or Daytona rules, as somebody again pushes it right up to the edge there on pit entry, as they could have maybe had a speeding penalty out of that one. But you do want to have a buddy with you out there to try and be able to save fuel, or just slipstream back and forth. If you can swap out on the track like we've been seeing our leaders do here for almost every lap of the race, that means faster lap times just by merit of you're going down the straightaways faster.
You certainly are. That was Alessandro Bico who was being uber aggressive when it came into the pits, and it looks like the dynamic duo are back together again. Robert Malechka the third and Hamilton Akabuezi, who's there in front only for the briefest moment, because there goes Malechka the third back through at turn 3. We wait for Daniel Falkingham to dive in, and does so here at the end of lap 70.
So only 33 laps on this one. I don't think he had someone to work with nearly as much as he did in the first stint. But we do know it is possible if he finds someone to hook up with to try and extend that. Either way, he's already given himself an advantage over everybody else out there, as he's once again the last one to take their pit stop. Another replay. Let's see what's happened out here.
So this will be Alessandro Bico diving into the pits, on board with Palladino here. Look at that for aggression, all the way to the inside. And how you get that slowed up, there's a tiny bit of tolerance when you hit the line that you've got to really throw the miles an hour underneath the pit speed limit there. But Alessandro Bico, you talk about how do you win races in the tiniest margins. Pitting is everything. If you're the fastest into the pits, fastest in the pits, and fastest out of the pits, you can win anywhere between 1 to 3 seconds.
Much like in real life, what the pits do is it actually kind of does the average. It has little bits along the way where it checks to see if you are over that speed over a certain amount of time. So if you over-slow when you find yourself coming in a bit too hot, you can save yourself in that situation. So that's what you're seeing these drivers do if they come in too hot. But the big thing there is you saw how much time Bico made up. That's why I was saying in and out laps make a huge difference. If you maximize that pit entry, that pit exit, you can make multiple tenths on your competitors.
Let's talk about who lost out in the pits there. Lucas Prada is now behind Peter Berryman. Berryman is up to third, Prada back to fourth, and it's not a case of Prada's on the back of Berryman, it's Prada looking back at Jacob Oster as you take a look at your positions gained in the field. +6 for Aaron Vasquez and Pablo Lazar.
So lots of drivers that have made up ground and some that have lost them in that stint, and getting close to the halfway mark of this race. It's definitely been going by quickly. We have passed up last year's mark of 68 laps of green flag racing, and I'm hitting the wood next to me now. We'll see how far we can go.
We certainly will out there. There have been some big movers up. There have been some big movers down the field, like Jose Soria, who is currently down at 2 laps down, and 1 lap down is Julian Klaffenbach. The last car on the lead lap right now is Lucas Lindqvist, who's down in 31st position in the number 31 car here today. So certainly a case of trying to find what is needed, and that is sitting at about 30 seconds off of the race lead at the moment. 41 seconds for a lap time at the moment here, Joe.
Yep, so they've already spread out, and we'll see them continue to run into that lap traffic as the race goes on, especially with the pace that we're seeing out of those front runners up there. So the way they just keep continuing to work together. Instead of Prada, now it's Berryman that's trying to play catch up at about that same distance of 1.2 seconds, still with that lapped car, Soria, separating them and offering at least something of a bridge. Just neither of our third place cars really seem to have been able to use it to as big of effect as I thought.
Well, Peter Berryman's done a fantastic job to bring back 0.8 of a second over the last few laps as he looks to try and hunt down those top two. Robert Malechka the third, and Hamilton Akabuezi, who's there. Let's take ourselves then here at this moment in time with a bit of full throttle noise as we listen in to the best of the best. Lap number 80 we find ourselves on here in the iRacing Indianapolis 500 fix, but let's take a look at what everybody has been able to do so far when it comes to racing action. Robert Malechka the third, currently in control at the moment, looking to get his third consecutive iRacing Indy 500 broadcast win in a row, with Hamilton Akabuezi close along with him, Peter Berryman and Lucas Prada third and fourth. It's then Jacob Oster ahead of Adriano Pinheiro, with Jaden Munoz and Brendan Lichtenberg there in 7th and 8th, and a big gap now starting to form to the rest of the top 10, Joe, who are now starting to pray that someone's going to find trouble here at this brilliant track.
Yeah, you can see Ferguson, a big talking point there. In 11th is, or excuse me, I'm thinking of Falkingham rather, but Ferguson's still doing great there in the top 11. But you're right, a lot of drivers who are looking for a caution to help bunch things up again, because they've been continuing to lose a lot of ground. And if you're just joining us, not to mention 40 5 splits going on at the same time right now. We are going to check in on some of those if we have time afterwards. And the way this race is going, Jake, I get the feeling we'll have some time to check on the other splits.
I think we'll get quite a bit of time to have a look at this moment in time. The way that we're running at this moment, they are going at light speed here today at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the way that Robert Malechka III and Hamilton Akabaisi have wanted to pretty much ignite this race from the front. They are drivers who want this race to be theirs to work with, and they're trying to build that gap to make it work. Keep an eye on Peter Berryman, though, who's there in 3rd position. I wonder whether this is going to be a push stint for him, where he's deciding, Joe, to burn the fuel just to join the group.
I'm getting the sense, like you said, I'm watching that time, and he's gaining bit by bit on them. So I think he is doing his best to try and catch up there. And if he does that, Prada's only a little less than a second behind him. He'd actually bring some friends along. But we'll have to wait and see, because still a lot that could happen. And who knows, maybe he might not get there by the time we get to the next pit stop, because that does seem to have separated things.
Adriano Pinheiro is down in the pits and with damage, and I think this might be the reason why. So he finds himself in trouble coming through 4, and as he gets himself now heading through this corner of 4, looking for drive off the exit, you can see right eye just catches the safer barrier, heavy hit to the front, and ultimately, because there were no cars behind him and he was able to escape out, caution doesn't come.
Remember, these are the automated iRacing stewards that are making these calls right now. So yeah, Jake is right. This is because of the fact that we didn't have anybody that was in immediate danger coming up upon that car.
And so effectively as well, he was coming up into pit lane. So with the accident happening there right next to the pit lane, effectively in the pit lane entrance, that is not enough to constitute a caution. We stay green at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Here comes RM3 again, moving to the point. And it gets interesting right now here for Peter Berryman, because he doesn't have a direct push to go and gain through that place, because still you've got the traffic there of Soria that becomes a very interesting port of call for the dynamic of this front 2 duo who leads this race. They think about where they want to be. They think about, well, we'll just trade at the front and keep our slipstream working and keeping our fuel numbers relatively even. You look at Peter Berryman, he's not got the luxury of just cruising up to the back. He will have to get by another car before he's joining in with that same sort of dance.
Yes, true, but I will say that Soria probably knows this is not his fight. He's just trying to get as close to the finish as he can. And credit to Jose, the fact that he's not giving up on this despite being 2 laps down, because the win is gone at this point. You're 1 lap down. I mean, there's maybe a rare chance that you get up 2 laps down. I don't think you're coming back to race for the victory on this one. But Jose wants to see the checkered flag. We ride on board with Berryman. That is Jose that we can see the next car up in line in front of us. And sometimes you'll have attrition help you out, but attrition has certainly not been a big factor so far today.
No, it certainly hasn't. In terms of retirees, Adriano Pinheiro has just become the first retiree out of this race. 32 runners still going here in split 1 of your iRacing Indianapolis 500 fixed. Here is Rafael Eckert at the moment in 15th position. Great battle going on here. Pedro Palladino, who's had the suspension take a little bit of a tap going through, and just behind that, Otis Lawrence, who has started to find a few struggles out there. Palladino to the inside at turn 3. That's what you call a nice, easy overtake there on Rafael Eckert.
Yeah, and we'll see how easy those overtakes are a little bit later in this race, because it's still early. There's still going to be some give and take out there. Drivers not fighting it too hard, just kind of letting this all come to them. But when it gets down to 20 laps to go, you might see a little bit more harsh defense.
And you look around, Rafael Eckert, there is a number of Brazilian drivers out there here racing, and you cannot turn away from the amazing, I would say, wealth of talent that comes through the Brazilian ranks, and also the amount that has done for this sort of IndyCar style racing, Joe, to the likes of Helio Castro-Neves and Tony Kanaan.
Yeah, Brazil has that rich racing culture, and it's not just over in Europe where you see them, but so many fantastic Brazilians have raced in IndyCar over the year. I mean, I think to Emerson Fittipaldi, perhaps one of the biggest Brazilian names to race here at Indy, had a huge impact. And as you mentioned, of course, Helio with his 4 wins. Although I know a few people have some controversial opinions on whether it counts as 4.
Well, in the record books, it says it's 4. They don't ask you how, Joe. They ask you how many. Right,
exactly. The decision has been made. You can't take it back at this stage. But we'll see if we can get a 3 in a row winner on this one, at least in terms on the broadcast races for Malechka. We have had 3 in a row in the past, didn't we, in the open races?
We certainly did. 3 consecutive years. Brandon Traino picking up 3 consecutive out there, but that's 3 straight in terms of year on year. We're talking slightly different here for Robert Malechka III. It's 3 consecutive out there, because the difference between Brandon Traino's run and also Robert Malechka's run is that Brandon Traino didn't win the fixed races that are out there, 2020 and 2021.
So as we watch Robert and Hamilton continue to swap around, 10 laps away from 250 miles of this one. And we've got pit stops happening pretty shortly here, as we're on lap 29 of the stint for most of these higher-up drivers.
Oh, we got a caution. There we go. First caution in. It's Julian Klaffenbach right in front of the leaders.
Wow, down into the short chute. So turn 3 has really been our sort of danger spot, which isn't typically the case here. And I think he had a little bit of help, unfortunately, on this one, as there was some contact involved in the incident. So there's our first yellow almost halfway through, and it works out very well for most of the drivers being at the end of their stint.
Absolutely it does. It was the last car on the leading lap as well, Lucas Lindqvist, who's been caught up in the incident. Lindqvist 12 months ago was very much up nearer the front and looking to try and push, but today it's a very tough day for him to deal with, as he now finds himself out here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Pace will now control for the first time behind the iRacing sedan pace car, and it means that for the first time in this race, a reprieve for these drivers who can now go to mode 8, Joe, and start fuel saving.
Well, and the fuel saving won't do a whole lot here, I don't think, because like I said, I'm pretty sure you're going to see just about everybody, and there's some towards the back of the pack. They're only about 20 to 22 laps into their stint, but I don't think there's really much to be gained by trying to stay out right now. I'm expecting you're going to see pretty much all of them come down as the leaders quite a ways ahead of everybody else. And yeah, there you can see that train just all heading towards the pit lane.
Well, Akabuezi there decided to take the short chute run through 3 and 4, keep the pace, and ultimately look at the gap it's given Robert Malechka here. So Malechka's going to surely re-inherit the race lead unless he has a disaster at the pit stop. But for everybody else now, look at it. Everybody has made the call. We are jumping into the lane. Everybody now is back on the same strategy again.
It's that Gary Oldman gif. Everybody is down pit lane. It's not an exaggeration. Anybody who is still racing has pitted this time. So it really is a straightforward call. And as they exit out, thankfully, it looks like we're going to be able to emerge. That's one of the things that this place is really known for, Jake, is it's a narrow pit lane out there.
Is a very narrow pit lane. Lucas Prada has lost another one out there, and I think we're going to take a chance here to look a little bit further back through the pack here at what has happened earlier on. So this is the issue. So there is Pinheiro, and we're going to focus on him. That's Lindqvist there just behind, who's trying to get through the lap traffic there. So sorry, that's going to be Klaffenbach, and there's the contact there with Klaffenbach. 1 contact, 2 contact, and then that hefty spin going across there down at the bottom. You can see here it's as close as you like to the WSA Sports Butt Kicker car. Tiniest tap, and round you go. 2 taps sends it to caution.
Yep, just getting that little bit too close down through the corners. I wonder if we're starting to see that racing line narrow with so many marbles. I mean, we had so much green flag racing, and also the racing line just being rubbered in down at the bottom, meaning drivers need to try and get to the bottom to get that speed. And maybe that's why we're seeing drivers push it a little bit more, going too wide through there, whereas before it seemed to be the easiest of things.
Oh, absolutely, and it goes to iRacing's dynamic track system, which finds itself in play, Joe, when you've only got 9.2 degrees of banking to get through each and every turn. This does become a race to the front, a race to the bottom very, very quickly. That higher line, you can't carry as much speed as you go over the top just by the profile of the corner being very, very shallow. So you're looking around at it and you go, yeah, it's going to be a battle over to the inside.
And drivers from all over coming in involved in this one, because we got all kinds of special events that you can take part in. And make sure to go to iRacing.com/special-events to see the full 2025 schedule. Look at what you've got, because I mean, we have the Indy 500 here, but look at this. We've got NASCAR racing, of course, on the oval side. We've got drivers on the dirt side with the trucks, the pro trucks. Then, of course, the Spa 24, one of the big races out here. The Nürburgring, the ultimate test for road racers. And earlier in the year, of course, we had the Daytona 24, one of the most prestigious endurance races in sim racing. And, of course, we go down under as well for Bathurst, where you have to test your skills amongst the walls. And, of course, then there's some weather in some of these as we go inside for the Chili Bowl on the dirt side at one point later in the year as well.
Certainly do. Lucas Oil Stadium there, looking very, very nice out there on track as in comes the pace car, and we'll resume to racing action on lap 94 here of 200. Robert Malechka the third with lap traffic behind him. We go back to green at Indy.
And will we see the aggression start to come out? We got a chance to mention it on the initial start, but what about now? As we saw a little bit of a look, I think, from Berryman trying to take that third place away. Doesn't work. Here's where the slipstream really comes to an effect, and this has eliminated that gap from second to third. Here we go.
Jacob Oster making a huge move to the inside. Soria's trying to get the lap back by trying to get that pass. So he's got his own agenda here. This is what gets difficult with these drivers at the front. But Jacob Oster, third to first on the first restart of the day, pinching down. Here comes Malechka for 3 wide.
Soria on the high side. Yes, he's making a bit of a nuisance of himself with a few of the other drivers, but he's running his own race. He wants to try and make up these laps. Oh, as he slaps the wall out of one.
And that will drop him down the order. Berryman will go by. Prada's going to look off the exit now to try and get a run. Akabuezi is down in 6th position right now, and look at the way that they go. It's all about who get the clearance. 3 wide, right back in the pack.
That has changed the complexion of things dramatically there as that lap car now gets kind of out of it a bit. I'm not sure that he's going to have the pace to try and get that one back. Those behind him want to try and dispose of him quickly so that they don't lose touch with the top two.
Yeah, and they don't want to lose that touch very quickly because they know how important the run's going to be. A look at first, a look at second. Robert Malechka the third and Jacob Oster, who are P1 and P2 at the moment, both keeping themselves very much in that calm state. Jacob Oster, you can't even really tell if he's breathing or not. He's that calm.
And the best of the sim drivers always are that cool, calm, and collected. It seems like nothing phases them when they're out there. Munoz now behind by 0.6 of a second. He's the one sitting in fourth. He wants to keep up with Berryman, and he's the one split by our lap car Soria.
Yeah, and so if you're on the wrong side of the split, this race gets exponentially harder. And so for Jaden Munoz, he's got to start making some progress. They are starting to do the chop and change that we see at the front as we're just a couple laps away from halfway in this race. 250 miles out of 500 miles being completed at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And now Malechka again makes that transfer to go through. But I find it interesting how Peter Berryman just doesn't show his hand at all.
Here's the real question. What are we looking at for a remainder of this if we go green? 3-stop cycle. We're looking maybe lap 119. 2-stop, and have to make it to about lap 130 or thereabouts. That's definitely doable, but it'll be interesting to see how flat out these drivers are going in this stint.
Well, that's going to be so important. Jaden Munoz trying to find a victory for Williams right now, and this would be a big, big result for arguably the best team in sim racing at the moment, as they now start to try and pick up everything. In special events, the gold mark standard is, can you beat that Williams sim racing team?
Absolutely, just a deeply stacked team over there. They bring in the best of the best, without a doubt. But I also love how many variety of drivers that we have out here. I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier as we checking out the battle between 7th, 8th, and 9th. This is a couple of teammates, but I look at drivers like Tomasz Simon. They come from Lotus 79, from iRacing's IR01 as well. Very different cars. I mentioned the Lotus 49 with Lodato. We've got Falkingham coming in from racing NASCAR stock cars as well. So yeah, you have drivers that are basically parachuting in, and they want glory here at the Brickyard.
They do, and now here comes an interesting scenario. Daniel Ferguson and Lucas Prada, both at WSR Esports Butt Kicker. This is where you get the eternal game when it comes to racing here at the Indy 500. Obviously, you all want to win the Indy 500, but when you're teammates, what's the protocol?
I want to win. That's what the protocol is. A lot of these teams I've found from experience is that some of them might have a little bit of plan beforehand, but frankly, when it's a one-off event like this, unless they find themselves under threat and it is some sort of team race, which this is not. I mean, they're a team, yes, but they're individual drivers. As we're going to get another yellow here.
Oh, that's huge. Not yet. Not yet. We stay green, and somehow it stays green. That is incredible out there. That was a massive, massive moment there going through 3 to 4. I think Otis Lawrence might be a driver who's been caught up near with that. Pedro Palladino dropping down the order. It's Michael Berg and Brendan Clough who find themselves dropping.
They got the worst of it for sure. They both took big damage, but I guess enough people scooted through and they were still moving in the right direction. The yellow was not deemed worth bringing out, and that basically ends their race because of that.
And Joe, we often don't get to talk about this, but a lot of the time when the caution comes out, it's about breaking a plane of 90 degrees. If you don't break that plane, it's not considered a spin and doesn't get a caution.
Exactly, and so they were pointed forward. They pulled off the racing line. That's the big thing. They came down to the grass. This is a racetrack which easily allows those drivers to do that, and that's what kept it going green. Now, everybody else appreciates that because not many people really want a race where you're sitting behind the pace car a lot. But for those two drivers, that's really the last thing that they wanted. They hoped probably that they could maybe get a few repairs and get back out only a couple laps down as we take a look at the replay.
Oh, you can see struggling on the inside there, starting to ride back up the circuit towards turn 3. Nowhere to go for Michael Berg in that incident there, and it's a very, very tough scenario to put yourself in. You're down on the bottom trying to deal with that, and look at the smoke screen that comes in front. Where do you go? Wave!
Nicely done. Remember, when you're going 200 plus, there is very little time to react, and things can snap back across the track in an incident, because you don't know what kind of damage that car is experiencing. Is it maybe missing a wheel? Is it going to suddenly slip back across into turn 4 in front of you? So you kind of have to make a judgment call in the moment. AJ Foyt always used to say, you go where the wreck is, because by the time you get there, it's going to be gone.
Well, you go where the wreck is, because by the time you get there, the wreck isn't. I think it's the best way to describe it there, Joe, and you're absolutely right with it. And so was AJ Foyt. But now for Jacob Oster. He now leads this race. And Oster might be one of the greatest sim racing drivers out there to never win the iRacing Indy 500. He's been close on so many occasions.
I think Oster's going.
Oh, that's a caution.
Wow, big leap up and over another car. That looks like potentially another teammate, as that is Falkingham, and we won't get to see the results of Mr. Fuel Save, unfortunately, today, but looking a little bit more like Pro 2 trucks, unfortunately, than the IR18.
Otis Lawrence was the car that got turned around. Falkingham getting a huge amount of air there. And Otis Lawrence, a driver who is, his reputation precedes himself as a truly fantastic sim racer, will not get the chance to battle here at the end for this Indy 500 fixed crown. But it does bring a caution back, and you sensed it over that run with 2 incidents, Joe, that drivers get nervous when cautions happen because they know they've got to settle on in. It's the age-eternal phrase of cautions breed cautions.
Always, always. We were very lucky on that first incident that we didn't get one, but I guess we didn't completely avoid that trope here. And yeah, that's the problem. As we get back to another restart, we are very likely, we're even more likely to have another one. Let's see how we got that high up in the air, because we only came in partway through, side by side off of 2. They come together and just acts as a launch ramp, sending that car probably a good dozen feet in the air.
The look from Lorenzo Manfredotti's perspective then, both battling out of 2, hitting a wall there on the outside, giving each other nothing to work with, and that's just understeer that goes in. How Daniel Falkingham doesn't have the black and orange mechanical flag for that, I have no idea. Look at that air. That is poster worthy.
Slipped a $5 to the iRacing steward somehow on that one. But great job on the landing and keeping himself in it, because at least he can get back out there.
One stays out. Matthew Zwack is not pitting.
Okay, so we got a roll of the dice. We're on lap 14 of the stint, so this is halfway through. So I wonder if he is banking on trying to make this a 2-stop, because this will make it a lot easier to get to the end. And look at the absolute flood of cars coming back out onto the track with Malechka there leading this train.
Yeah, but look at Aaron Vasquez in the stops. Look at how much time he's gained. He's now up to 3rd.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Vasquez, I think he was fuel only. I don't think he took tires. Looks like Lichtenberg as well, 5 seconds. Van den Ness also I'm seeing at 4.2. Eckert. So there's some more gamblers. Now, the tires are going to have to go a bit long, but tires, at least on the sim, usually aren't as big of a big talking point.
Well, there you go. Fuel only, 5.7 seconds. 5 seconds only for Brendan Lichtenberg, who's decided it's fuel only. The tyres are fine. They haven't gone that long, so he can stay out there on this set of tyres. So keep an eye out for them to maybe fall back over the course of the stint. But here's the thing. The more restarts that you do, Joe, the more heat cycles that go into the tyres, the less good that a fresh set of tyres does as you go. So that's a case of, we'll see it a lot more later on in this race if we start getting caution after caution. But right now, it's a case of, well, I think my tyres are going to be good here for this next run. I'm going to stick on them.
And more than that, if you got the slipstream and you're battling for the lead or whatever position you want, I don't think the tires will make that big of a difference. The slipstream will overcome that quite easily here as we check out where most IndyCar drivers tended to come from in the earlier days, the dirt side, before things kind of switched over to pavement. But World of Outlaws, obviously giving you a lot of action, as iRacing's fantastic game that you can race both on Steam, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and then of course you've got PS4 and PS5 where it's available. But all kinds of awesome laser scan tracks that you too can race on your console.
Absolutely. It's often imitated, never duplicated. It's the greatest show on dirt out there. And then, of course, your Coke Series is going to be jumping on along for great action coming along soon. Now, I've just seen the most interesting bit of chat from Jose Soria, who's gone, is there a wave around here? He doesn't know how it works. He's hoping for a wave around that's not coming.
Read the rules. You always got to read the rules. Unfortunately, IndyCar a bit unique on the oval side without that wave around. So yeah, he's going to be a bit disappointed. I have to ask, Jake, have you ever gotten to go to a dirt oval race? Because it's an experience.
I haven't gone to a dirt oval. I've gone to paved ovals here in the United Kingdom. We don't have many dirt ovals, but we have enough. The biggest ones, though, are on the other side of the country, the likes of the Adrian Flux Arena, which is in Kings Lynn, which is where Martin Brundle and George Russell are from.
Ah, interesting. Love to see them show up at one, but very much its own deal. Looks like we're going to go racing once again.
We certainly are. Lap 108 for Matthew Zwack, who will take his first laps led here in your iRacing Indy 500 fixed top split running. Behind him, Robert Malechka the third, Aaron Vasquez and Peter Berryman sitting there as your top four. Jacob Oster in 5th place, and now here comes the run. Well, it didn't take very long for RM3 to get back to the top. He makes the move. Now here comes Vasquez, power move down to the inside, looking to get it done at 3, and does.
Nicely done. Again, that gets him the clear air, but for how long? And Peter Berryman overtaking Zwack. Zwack dropping like a rock. Now we know that he wasn't as quick as the leaders, but I didn't think he was that far down that we should see him overtaken too many times, but he's getting swallowed up quickly.
He very much is. 3 places gone immediately. Jacob Oster now looking around the outside of 1 and to 2. I think that decision to stay out is not paying off for Matthew Zwack. Look at him. He's a stone right now, and he'll look back again because here comes Soria the lap car and Jaden Munoz.
Stone dropping like a rock in one of the golf course ponds, unfortunately, on the infield. So maybe he'll regret that. Maybe it'll settle out as everybody else around him starts to even out on pace. We'll see where he winds up, as he is back to 5th, but he's not being passed as quickly now as we see. That is Jaden Munoz in behind him, leading along Lichtenberg and Akabuezi.
Yeah, very much that next group in line that's starting to bring themselves in play. Akabuezi now sat in the pack for the first time, looking to go through. And you do bring up the golf course on the inside. It's actually very unique in its own right, Joe. It's called Brickyard Crossing after the updates that's done to it, designed by legendary golf designer Pete Dye. And it's had golfers win on the PGA Tour, their likes of Arnold Palmer and Gary Player.
Indeed, it's a really distinct part, and also a testament to how big this track is. It has part of a golf course, and that doesn't even fill up a tiny portion of the infield. Yes, it is some of the infield, but it's not much. You really don't understand the scale of this place until you set foot within it.
No, it is truly a cauldron all of itself. A circuit that has 257,000 seated capacity, can go over 400,000 on race day. As we take a look a little bit further down in the pack here to Raphael Eckert right now, who's looking to try and make this run over towards turn number 3. And you've got the likes then of Alessandro Bico there, Pablo Espes trying to keep himself busy right now on the inside there in the Williams, and hoping that there's drive off of this exit with Alessandro Bico right behind. And then behind that, Matthias Orjuela, first time that we've seen Matthias out there all season long, and that makes that a 3-car Williams train.
Yeah, and definitely been a bit of back and forth here as things are getting a little bit more sketchy, I think, when we're going wheel to wheel. These two are going to have to get this settled out relatively soon. Eckert's going to have the speed down the back straightaway to be able to pull back ahead of Espes, and Bico will just kind of slot in line behind them. Yeah, I think we're seeing a very big change in the way this track is racing, Jake, in that you don't really want to be racing side by side unless you have to.
No, I don't think drivers want to race side by side too much now. They want predictability, and the unpredictable that often comes along in racing like this is key. Espes again moving to that inside at turn 1, but look at the high line. It's starting to get a bit of work here. Eckert holding the line nicely.
We saw that last year as well, that the high line works surprisingly well. In real life, you usually don't talk about it. If you're on the high line, you want to back out of that one, and you'll start to drift up. But here in the sim, it seems to be able to handle at least well enough that you can use the momentum to your advantage.
And that momentum, I think, is going to be really important to maintain over the course. Lap 1:13, and you'd feel if you're in a 3-stop window between now and the end, you're pitting soon. If you're looking to try and extend it to a 2-stop, about 1:30 is where you've got to try and hit right now, and it's full of strategy. O'Connor, Manfredotti, Pablo Lazar, and Tam Ashermon for Sesha Esports there behind is now starting to bring this one into play, and it is getting feisty in the lower part of the top 20.
It is indeed. We're down to only 26 cars left on the lead lap for what it's worth. I think 27 running. Jose Soria is really holding out hope that maybe he can get those laps back. He's still 2 laps down, but to his credit, he's up to 27th now. So everybody else falling by the wayside and wrecking out has given him some positions.
It very much has. Simon close then in terms of picking up that move on Pablo Lazar. Lazar able to hold that station then and trying to get by Lorenzo Manfredotti, who is on the roster, so to speak here, Joe, of Ferrari's esports team. So a very, very talented driver, and in Ferrari's roster is a former fixed winner, the first ever fixed winner, Graham Carroll.
I mean, again, just shows you how important real racing is realized, that sim racing is becoming, that you have names like Williams and Ferrari involved in the sim world now. So, yeah, watch out for this space, because you never know if one of these drivers are actually going to show up at your real track one day.
I know, it's one of those things where the bridge between sim racing and real racing pretty much gets smaller and smaller each and every single time. Little pivot down low, Manfredotti on the outside, scrubbing so much speed there. Lucky he's not clobbered the wall going through the exit of one. It brings in Tamas Simon to find a run. He gets stymied, and suddenly Palladino and Lodato are brought onto the train.
The exit of turn one feels like it disappears from in front of you, honestly. It not really disappears, but more like it closes down very suddenly. So yeah, not shocked that he had to lift a little bit. Or at least I wouldn't recommend trying that too many times this late in the race, of going too wide through there.
And if you imagine that this circuit is pancake flat, it actually tilts ever so slightly down towards turn number one, which makes it the fastest section on track to go and get yourself in. So you've got to be so alert to all of that action, Joe.
Absolutely. Remember, this was built in 1909, so it's not picture perfect. It has its idiosyncrasies out there, hence why each of the corners drive that little bit different. They haven't done anything over the years to try and change that. They want it to be unique, and there you go. There's all the various stats that we talked about a little bit earlier in this race. Everything by the numbers is theoretically the same, but none of them are.
No, they very much not. It's a quarter mile each for each corner. It's 5/8 of a mile on each and every straight, but each profile of 9.2 degrees of banking is very, very different. Opened, of course, back in 1909 by Carl G. Fisher, one of the three architects that designed this Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Was handed over in 1927 to Eddie Rickenbacker up until the end of the Second World War, where Holman and Company held on to it for the longest of times, and very recently, 2020, sold over to the Penske Entertainment Group.
Exactly. That was a big moment for those of us who are fans of Indy, knowing that that was really an era changer. We entered something new here at Indianapolis when it finally changed hands, and especially because it had been within that Holman family, just handed over from person to person as time went on. We're seeing something brand new as we continue to watch from Berryman in the top two. If you're just joining us, this has been very normal. The leaders have been swapping back and forth literally this entire race. So this is intentional that you're seeing them change hands, and why we're not really focusing on it.
81 laps to go as they cross the yard of bricks. Aaron Vasquez then will cede over the race lead once again to RM3, Robert Malechka III, who finds himself happily in that position and looking to try and charge on forward right now. You start thinking about here the likes of those who sit and wait behind. Jacob Oster, Jaden Munoz, there, Hamilton Akabuezi, and Matthew Zwack, who's been able to find a little bit of consistency now. They're thinking about what happens later on in this race. How do we build a platform that gives us the margin to attack late on?
It sounds like we've lost Rafael Eckert as our latest DNF, and I think he smacked the wall on that one and then decided he didn't want to bring out the caution, so left the race as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you can see here, tags the wall, down he goes into the infield and bounces off, and fortunately there gets the disconnect sorted before he leaves. And it's very much the similar scenario to what we saw happen with Oli Steinbroughton at the Daytona 24, which caused that Ferrari team to get disqualified.
Yeah, exactly. You're generally not supposed to do stuff like that, but I'm sure the racers that are still enjoying some green flag racing don't mind too much right now that we get to carry on as per usual. It almost feels kind of fitting that we have that bright yellow as one of our leaders. Just kind of makes me think of that that wonderful, almost fluorescent yellow, a Menards car that has been a leader many, many times here at this track.
Oh, it very much has been, and we've noticed so often how drivers love to get that design of their favourite car out there and showcase at the moment, but it's bright yellow for Aaron Vasquez, and he is out in front and doing what he knows best, which is to lead from the front by example. 12,500 iRacing in GT circles. Here is a driver who each and every single time screams that he is one of the best in the world when he goes out there. I remember a time when the 10K Club was something that only a handful of drivers could catch, like Ty Majeski and Maximilian Benneker, but now 12.5 is the new 10K.
Yeah, it really is stunning just how they've continued to raise that iRating mark out there, and it shows you the level that you have to be racing at to be up at the top here. Now, granted, remember, that is on GT Road. Right now, Malechka has an 8,000, which is still pretty darn high over on the oval side that they are running under right now. They're racing according to their oval licenses, albeit this split was determined by their qualifying time. It's once you get down to the lower splits and drivers have not set a qualifying time that you are sorted by your iRating.
Very much the case, and now on lap 124, it's still a game of who blinks. So I think everybody now has settled into the rhythm and said, right, let's make this a two-stop race between now and the end. Vasquez again trading happily then at the front here and trying to go to a level that a certain other Spaniard has gone in recent years. Alex Palou is Aaron Vasquez trying to get that level of dominance here at the front. Malechka having none of it will take the slipstream back, heading over towards turn one, and now will once again pick up that launch, gain that place, and manage it here. Now on to lap 125 here of 200.
Exactly. And for those wondering why we're seeing this, essentially think of this like, I mean, we keep calling it a game of leapfrog. That's pretty much what it is. So what happens here is the car in second place, Vasquez here in the yellow machine, he'll get the slipstream. He gets up to, let's say, about 222 at the end of the straightaway. If he was just by himself, he'd get maybe 220. And then if you're Malechka, you'll get up to 222 at the end of this straightaway, swapping right back. So you're running a faster race by doing this. Yes, you're not running away from those behind them, but they have reason for continuing to use this. And the other point is, of course, we've touched on, they are saving a little bit more fuel too.
Yeah, so there's a lot that has gone on then in terms of how they're playing the fuel game, but let's take a little look at what has happened over the course of some of the racing action that we have seen so far today. It was a case of the drop of the green flag was as easy as you like. Everybody was looking to give themselves a margin. We spent a long time without caution. We nearly went 3 full stints without finding a single one of them, but the key to this race, Joe, was all about keeping out of trouble, and once the first caution came, trouble soon followed.
Absolutely, and there's all that swapping about that we were talking about. Big thing though, also hit your marks on pit entry, pit exit, and of course into your pit stall, as unfortunately we saw was discovered by Brophy there. Although Brophy is still on the lead lap, he's back up to 14th. In the meantime, a couple drivers managing to wreck out without bringing out the yellow flag, such as Pinarino there on pit entry.
Yep, so we saw Pinheiro run into a huge amount of trouble. 3 wides then on the restart and the like, and the charge of Jacob Oster to the point. And then Daniel Folkingham deciding that he was going airborne as he came out of turn 2.
Yeah, they have wings on the IndyCar, but they're not meant to put you up in the air. They're meant to keep you on the track. And he is actually back out on track, Folkingham is, and running, but he's... well, actually, is he on the lead lap? Did he get that thing repaired? Holy cow.
Yep, he's 18 seconds off of the race lead at the moment, so I think this is a walking wounded style moment at the moment for Daniel Folkingham. All they had, there was no suspension damage there. It was a case of put a brand new nose on it and you're good to go.
Yeah, I have a feeling that would not necessarily be the case in the real world, but he got away with it here, and we'll be able to at least stay on that lead lap as we take a look at Daniel Folkingham now on the screen. And who knows how it's driving underneath him, but fast enough that he can at least keep within 9 seconds of the next nearest car.
which is Nathan Paris in the number 24 machine. Each and every car in the top 24 is at least within half a second to a second of the car in front. It's Falkingham who is the only straggler at the moment in this field. They're keeping a very nice pace together here on lap 129 here of 200. And again, it's a case of nobody's in the realm of deciding to dive down into the pits here. Aaron Vasquez happy with where he is. Now we get the first pit to Matthew Zwack, who remember did not pit at the last pit stop.
Yep, I was about to say, because I noticed earlier he was on lap 22. I thought, oh, well, he's going to have to come in pretty soon here. And it's lap 38 that he's finally had to come in, about 10 laps earlier than the next nearest car that we expect.
And if that's the case, then we're looking at about lap 140 now as the best place to go through. So anywhere between lap 135 and 140, you're looking at drivers being aggressive. 31 to 32 lap stints might be good from this point onwards. So I would say now, I'm looking around at this race, this has suddenly turned into basically a mock-up sprint. This is basically your hour lap record that you've got right now.
And Zwack should be able to make it, although he'll have to do a lot of fuel saving. He'll probably be hoping for a caution, but not right now, because there he is. He's about to go a lap down.
Oh, and now this is going to get interesting. And at the moment, Jacob Oster dropping out there at the moment as he had himself some technical issues out there that takes him out of the race, and that would be heartbreak for Oster.
Hope we'll see him reconnect here pretty soon. That is just... that is heart-wrenching to see you make it this far in and have an internet connection be the thing that costs him a shot at it.
Even the drivers are saying no out there at the moment. Lucas Lodato was on the radio there saying, no, that's not what we wanted to see. He's a driver's favourite as well as Jacob Oster. So to see him robbed of an opportunity like this is an absolute shame to see, and one which he will kick himself at because he's done nothing wrong in this race. Von Danessa now on the defence as Lucas Prada looks to try and move up through. Does so. Welcome to P8 again.
Yeah, word behind the scenes is even his webcam is not showing up anymore, so that has hints that it was some sort of PC issue for him. I'm so gutted for him. Every driver here has their heart set on trying to, if not get the victory, at least see all 200 laps completed. The checkered flag on its own is an accomplishment at Indy.
Yeah, it very much is. So you can blow your engine here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but it's very much the same as that when it happens here in the sim there for the issue that Jacob Oster had. Pretty much it's a case of goodbye, and one more driver is lost out there, which means we're down to just 25 runners out there. The gap is growing. Robert Malechka, the third here, is starting to stretch his legs, and I think he's used Matthew Zwack as the perfect pick to break away from everyone.
This is clever out of Robert. It has definitely allowed him to pull forward and gap up to now about 1.1. And we've seen that gap hold in the past. So is that going to be far enough, or is Vasquez going to be able to reel him in thanks to Zwack as well? Let's keep an eye on this.
It depends on how far Matthew Zwack falls back, but remember, Zwack's just gone in, got fresh tyres, and should be at his quickest, but he hits the barrier of wind out there, of course, through all the air turbulences that are out there at this stage. So for Aaron Vasquez here and the group behind, this, I would say, would be an alert, a canary in the coal mine, as it were, to say, you've got to chase this, or RM3 is going to drive away from everyone.
The last thing you want is for that driver to be able to just kind of do their own thing. You want to remain a factor, and that means staying in the slipstream. So yeah, I feel like Aaron needs to try and catch up to him. If not with this, maybe with the pit stops, which are coming up soon.
Well, the window's open, 66 laps to go, 33 is seemingly the average that we see, so this is pretty much the go number if you want to get yourself through with one pit stop remaining, and still no takers as they think, which leads to me that everyone's going to feel a little bit comfy out there at the moment. 30 laps then on the stint is going to be found then at the end of this here, 30 to 31, so they're pretty much in the wheelhouse for what they are hoping to get.
Now, one reason that you will probably see drivers go long is a couple. The lighter car, it's going to be quicker, so you want to try and stretch it out. The other thing is if you try and get the fuel stop as short as possible at the end, that will help you out potentially. If you could get a green flag run where you only have to do a 2-second splash and dash versus everybody else needing 6 seconds, that will help you. The other thing I want to touch on here, Zwack, I think, dropped behind our leader quite intentionally because I have a feeling he's trying to use this. Remember, he needed to save a huge amount of fuel, and he's using this to great effect.
Absolutely. He needs every single drop of petroleum he can get his hands on at this stage. And Robert Malechka III is going to act as a very important launch pad for Zwack's race at this point. Even if it is just 10 laps, even if it's 5 laps, every little helps out there in a race like this. And Robert Malechka III will only oblige because it's given him the 1.4 seconds he wants to play with at the front of this field. And everybody else behind can only watch as this margin grows.
Bad news for everybody else, but man, what a masterstroke out of Robert. We got a couple takers in pit lane. O'Connor and Shimon look like they are in. And again, this should easily get them to the end, but now they make themselves vulnerable to that yellow, like we've seen, and could wind up, well, probably will wind up a lap down.
Yeah, and that's the issue that you have, especially in the middle of a pit stop cycle. Anyone who pits in early is at the whim and mercy of anyone who goes late. In comes RM3, followed by Vasquez. Peter Berryman will stay out now and inherit the race lead.
So he is the one hoping that we get a caution at just the right time, unless he also will be pitting in. But Berryman could have been saving some fuel since he was sitting in behind a couple cars out there. Munoz, Akabuezi stays out. Van de Sant stays out. So still a lot of cars that are going to try and stretch this as far as they can go. I kind of agree with him. I feel like going long as possible is the move here.
Yeah, long is always sometimes the way that works, but I would sit down and say if you can make long work, it's great if you can find everything that's perfect. If you got it just right, you don't leave yourself much margin. Got another taker off the back through and in. That's Brendan Lichtenberg, who, remember, took fuel only. Chris Fondanessa also jumps in behind with Pablo Lazar and Lorenzo Manfredotti.
And critically, Vasquez was not able to close in under the pit stops. He is emerged almost 2 seconds behind Malechka. Again, a long stop in comparison, 10.2 versus 9.1. So Vasquez, unfortunately, not getting the rub of the green in terms of his pit stall time.
Yeah, definitely not getting much help, and he's trying to use everything he can to close that back up. More takers now come in. Jaden Munoz locking him up, trying to get it slowed, and just about manages it. Lucas Prada follows him in with Esbes and Brophy.
Yeah, don't see any black flags, so it looks like everybody is safe on this one. Green flag stops are always such a very nervous time. Yeah, you better hope that you have practiced everything and you know how this car is going to behave when you try to slow it down from 220 miles an hour to 60.
Yeah, it's such a difficult slowing speed, and we do know that the brakes here are not optimized here for getting the slowdown sorted. You've just got to make sure that you're in the right realm, the wheelhouse, and it works. Now Peter Berryman decides, with 60 laps to go, that it's time to hit the lane, followed swiftly by Akabuezi and Alexander Van der Sant.
So where do they come out in relation? Daniel Ferguson going to be our one that goes a little bit long here. And I think the only one that's able to extend it an extra lap. Everybody else has pitted in. But we watch to see where guys like Berryman...
Oh, miss box!
Oh!
Just like that, Peter Berryman misses his box, and there goes a second and a half.
We heard Soup talk about it in the intro video. It takes everything. It takes being perfect along with a little bit of luck to come away with the win. And now as they watch our leaders just blow by, that's the difference. Look at how much gap they've made.
And Peter Berryman, you can argue, has got away with it because he's only lost the place to Akabuezi. He's in a group of 3, and so he can recover back in this one. And so close so many times Apex have been to picking up what's needed. Now Daniel Ferguson hits the pits with 58 laps to go. And there's a change at the front because I tell you what, Aaron Vasquez has caught and passed Robert Malechka III from a mile back.
I was just looking at that myself, and I think it was raw pace, unless Robert was trying to save a bit of fuel or something. I don't see anything that really hints that he should have been able to catch them. The other possibility is that Robert may be lifted a bit to help him catch him because he wanted to leapfrog some more. But that also means that Munoz has caught them. So it's more than just a 2 car that is up at the front. It's 3.
It's 3 clear at the moment, and they've got 1.6 seconds to Akabuezi, who's there in 4th position out on track. Berryman trying to hold with Alexander van der Sant, who has been so quiet in this race, as too has Brendan Lichtenberg. Malechka, who has been playing roughshod at the front of this race all race long, has been driving a textbook race on how to win from the front, but you've got to move up to the front at the right times in this race, and that's where I look at car 20, Jaden Munoz, who's done a wonderful job of it so far. Akabuezi now at 1.1.
And can we talk about Vasquez starting from 18th on the grid? 17 gain to be leading this race currently. So really just phenomenal. Here's the replay on what cost Berryman in the end, about 2 seconds back from the lead now.
Yep, so you can see here, looking for his marks, braking in the asphalt, and the rear's lock as he tries to go through. You're looking at a certain braking percentage as you hit there. The rear tire's lock, and goodbye.
So what about when he comes off, really gets out of there well, and makes up a lot of the time to get back up with him. So just a very quick stop. I wonder if maybe he lessened the fuel just to try and save himself a bit.
Well, if that's the case, he's really going to have to work hard over this, give himself what he needs. And Vasquez, 10.2 seconds, that's your difference maker. That is a full tank of fuel at the stop, which might mean that Aaron Vasquez can go longer than Malechka III and have a very short final stop to this race.
And I think that's a gamble that's looking like it may have paid off because Vasquez, like we said, made up that time very quickly to Robert. So, yes, he lost a little bit, but he's made it up, and now he's with the lead and has a little bit more wiggle room.
9.8 there for Jaden Munoz, 9.9 for Hamilton Akabuezi as he's there and very happy with where they is. Lap car down at the bottom of the road. Daniel Folkingham taking the traditional line to go a lap down, and so that's fair game by him as he continues on out there on circuit here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 54 laps to go. Vasquez back to the inside, and now he sits in a great position. Not just if they go green all the way. If there's a caution, they've got one more stop to make. He's got the cheap free pit stop that gives him the track position.
And you know what I'm very eager to see here as we encroach upon the final quarter of the race soon. We've seen a lot of very polite playing with these top 3. Pretty much all the leaders at any point in this race have just been kind of trading it back and forth. Nobody's really been fighting it. What happens when we get to the end where you don't want to give up that lead position, especially when it comes down to the final part where if we get a yellow, that ends the race. Everybody will want to be in the lead as much as possible. I think we'll see a complete change in the temperament of all of these drivers at the front.
Well, the danger laps are laps 197 to 199. If you see a caution come out with 4 to 2 laps to go, it may very well be the end of the race here in split number 1. If you see anything happen on lap 200, you race it to the end. If you see something on lap 195, well, good news, you'll have a lap to try and figure out if you can win, like split 2 in time zone 1 earlier on in the racing yesterday. But it's 4 at the front now. Akabuezi has joined the group. Berryman's coming along. Van der Sant is joining this one as well. And agonisingly off the back of this, trying to use Soria as a way to get up, Brendan Lichtenberg.
We've had an incident, but no caution for Pablo Lazar. And I think this is once again in turn 3.
Still there.
Yeah, hasn't towed it, but he's off the racing line. If he's hoping for that yellow, it's not coming, buddy.
No, it very much isn't. Pablo Lazar, I think, will have head in hand at an incident like that, which has cost him the race. And he was right behind Tamash Simon as he was going through. It was heading in towards turn at number 3. He got outside on the outside line, and he's come together with Eric O'Connor.
Looks like we found a replay of that one, so let's show our audience exactly what happened. I mean, gosh, we've seen this multiple times now. Too wide into turn 3, and just a little bit of contact, and smash up into the outside wall with a hard hit. Somebody else made slight contact there. Not sure who that was.
I'm not sure whether it was Lodato or Palladino there. It might have been Pedro Palladino who managed to be able to avoid it, but that was very, very close. Whoever it was, they're streaking across the screen there. Pablo Lazar, the latest retiree out here in this race with just the 2 cautions to the name, and it's been a very, very tough game of attrition here today. Moves at the front, and now look back there in P5. Alexander van der Sant is now making moves. He goes top 5 past Berryman.
Oh, we get more and more players involved in this one. It's going to make it harder and harder to predict. When it's just 2 of you, you can play that game, I wouldn't say easily, but you have fewer things that could switch around on you. If you have 3 cars, it gets infinitely harder. Now imagine with 5 of them.
I know, it's absolutely incredible. I think we found out who it was, and it was Palladino, who I think, if a cat had 9 lives, he's got about 18 of them out there here today. So here we go. Oh, how on earth does he avoid that?
Gosh, I think he was involved in the contact in one of our first ones early on as well. So yeah, that guy has just been getting away with a lot out there, and somehow he's running in 20th, so it's not like he's looking at winning this race at this stage, but the fact that he's still in it is kind of its own amazing fact.
If he's got my vote, vote Pedro. I think it's that sort of day that he's out there at the moment, having that everything he's avoiding is just giving him opportunity right now. Still the front 3 persists at this stage. Malechka the 3rd, Vasquez and Munoz. Vasquez back to the point. 48 laps to go. We're inside the final quarter of this race, and so gloves come off, knuckle dusters come on, and everyone decides, right, we're done playing games, now we're going to win this race.
Yeah, you mentioned with teammates and whatnot, they're only your teammates. They're not your friend right now. Everybody is in it for themselves. They want to try and take victory. They want to kiss the bricks here at Indy. And, you know, there's a small few of our special events, I think, that mean that much more. This is definitely up there. I look at events like the Daytona 500, the Daytona 24, the Spa 24, the Bathurst 12 hours. Those are races that drivers go the extra mile to try and bring home.
They go so aggressively to try and get this to be theirs. We go on board with Alexander van der Sant, who sits there from Club Indiana, looking to bring himself into position. He knows how important a race like this will be for him as part of the Hoosier State. Looking at the 4 in front, 2 that have been near the front pretty much all day, Malechka and Akabuezi. Aaron Vasquez, who has worked his magic to get up to the front and seemingly has a knack of winning, and Jaden Munoz, who's been the quiet driver. We look at Munoz right now, and he seems pretty nonplussed at the moment as he goes through. He's led 3rd position pretty much for the last 50 laps or so, and he'll be quite pleased with the work that he's done so far for Williams.
Jaden Munoz in such a great position to wrap this one up for sure. Started towards the sharp end of the field, definitely, but has been there or thereabouts. And honestly, I think Jaden might be the one to watch simply because he's been a bit unassuming compared to all those around him. I don't think I've seen him making a lot of big moves. He hasn't been swapping as much for the lead. He's just been kind of letting this race unfold.
Yeah, this has been a race of patience right now for Jaden Munoz. Happy to see the front two on transfer. He'll pick his fuel up and try and get a shorter stop to try and give himself the launch. And every driver in this group is looking at where do you pick the launch, and they're now starting to coalesce behind Brendan Lichtenberg. You've got Lucas Prada, Pablo Espes, Chris Fondeness is trying to hold on. Daniel Ferguson is still in that group. Ferguson is the back of the group. 11 cars split by 4 seconds with 44 to go when they cross the line.
So we're getting close to that mark where drivers could pit and get to the finish. And here we've got a replay. Oh, another
no,
problem. Well, those 9 lives are gone, I'd say.
Yep, he's out of them, and at the back of the field, no caution because there were no cars there to go through. The less and less cars there are, the more troubles you run into, and then there were 23 out there on track and circulating. Pedro Palladino now out of the race. Malechka at 3. Picks back up the race lead once again, and once more now they find themselves in the middle of the stint. So, Joe, as they're going through this stint, they're going to be relying more on the anti-roll bars and the weight jacker to give themselves the much help of the in-car tools to keep the car turning the best it can.
Exactly. And one thing that I was going to talk about there before we went to the replay was that, yes, there are drivers that could try to pit early. In the real world, you want to be the first to pit last. And here in iRacing, honestly, it's going to be who can go the longest, I believe. We're going to see drivers try to go as far as they can to pit the latest here at the end. So we're on lap 19 to 16 for most of these up at the front. I'm expecting probably, another 14 more laps for most of them.
Oh, it's getting busy. Lucas Prada out of turn 4 absolutely steals one on Lichtenberg, and it's going to be 2 for his mistake as Pablo Espes sneaks his way through at 1.
Seeing definite change in how the cars are racing one another here and how they're even racing the track as we hop on board off of turn 2. Almost runs out of it. Lichtenberg. I see a little bit of a smirk creep up on there. He knows he's pushing it.
He is going like the clappers at the moment with the Team i5G Dallara. Right now, his IR18 pretty much squeaked through turn 4, squeaked through turn 2, and now needs to find that patience play again to get back onto the rear. And Pablo Espes will join, and soon Fondanessa, and of course the driver who will pit in the latest, Daniel Ferguson, on the back of the train.
Defends the high side. He'll get away with it a little bit easier this time as the attacking car will back out. Pablo Espes will think again about that one later as he takes a glance at one of his side screens. Didn't look too pleased about how that move went.
Pablo Espes is a driver who can get hot-headed out there in the sim. He's a driver who does wear his heart on his sleeve and loves going for anything he can. He's been a nearly man for a lot of his sim racing career, but someone with so much potential to go and reach that next stage, finding himself inside the top 10 late here at the iRacing Indy 500 fix. It's someone who wants to go and win this, might need a bit of help, but he's certainly in a position where it's definitely not impossible, but it's definitely also not implausible.
And for our viewers, keep in mind, much like the real race, drivers have put in countless hours on this one. Yes, this is fixed setup, but they've been practicing. They've been working hard on this. Some of them maybe have been spending weeks to try and prepare for this race. And on top of it, now they've gone, I believe, in the realm of 400 miles. They don't want to come this far just to lose out. And of course, you can also experience the iRacing Indy 500 itself, as you can join in on iRacing.com. And if you're a new member, you can save 40%. That's a massive amount of saving.
It's a huge amount when you consider the likes of a 3-month membership or even a yearly membership you can bring yourself into. So there's some wonderful bits of racing you can find through with us on iRacing. The best tracks and the best cars all throughout the world are here with us on iRacing. And right now it is here at Speedway, Indiana, where it becomes the game. We are about 10 laps away from money pit stops being put in, which is that final stop. That final stop is the one that you pretty much look down at and say, please don't make mistakes. That's Matthew Zwack leading the pits, and look at where he's going to come out, right in the middle of this. He'll be behind Von der Nessa, and in fact, he'll have to wait for Peter Berryman and Jose Soria, and maybe even Lucas Prada.
I'm not looking at where he's coming out in the group. I'm looking at where he's coming out in terms of laps. 38 to go, there's no way. He can't make it to the end for there, unless we get a whole spate of cautions, which could happen. But again, he's already a lap down anyways. So I think this has not worked out for Matthew Zwack. He rolled the dice. Unfortunately, it did not come out his way.
No, he's rolled snake eyes here today in terms of strategy. It was a bold decision, but ultimately it's just that, a bold decision at this point. 37 laps to go. Aaron Vasquez happy to be at the front, but this is a game of how many litres of fuel can you put into your car and still make it home. That's the question you've got to answer. You've got 70 litres in the tank to play with, Joe, and ultimately it's going to come down to who puts the least in to make their car as light.
Absolutely. Oh, we get a yellow.
Oh, it's big. It's absolutely huge on the back stretch. And please don't tell me it is. It's Brendan Lichtenberg.
Oh, and it is once again contact in turn 3. So same deal as we've seen for almost every single caution, I think barring one so far in this race. It has been turn 3, trouble corner.
Well, this will be everyone in now, as they know they're going to be saving fuel and they're going to be putting themselves in. I don't know as well, Joe, in that incident, how Pablo Espes has kept that out of the wall after the contact.
You know who's creeping around right now? Matthew Zwack. He's trying to save as much fuel as he can, hoping this will somehow get him to the finish on that latest stop. But again, I see that as highly unlikely.
Well, he can hope and pray, and he knows that he'll have to stay out and gain that lap back, so he'll get to do that the hard way. But everybody now knows the money pit stop is going to be under yellow conditions. Everybody is going to be staring down a fresh set of tyres. Everybody is going to be staring down the chance of a lifetime to go and win. But car number 1 is car number 1 for a reason, Joe, and that reason is winning the last 2 broadcasted Indy 500s.
Indeed. The highest I rating in this split is the real reason that he's got that. But, you know, the number 1 is so fitting for Malechka, who comes into pit lane. And, yeah, Zwack stays out to get that lap back. And Daniel Falkingham, I believe, also gets a lap back after he went a lap down from just lack of pace out there. So who has a short stop?
Akabuzi's missed the box.
He did indeed.
That's big. That's going to cost him time. Now it's a scramble. Jaden Munoz might have just beaten everybody off the lane. Jaden Munoz will take the net race lead.
8.1 seconds, just that little bit quicker. Remember, he was sitting back there in third for so long up there. But, okay, yeah, he's taking his time. He's not getting full throttle out here to catch up to the pace car. 35 laps to the finish. Everybody's going to have to be very light on that right foot.
Well, now it becomes a game of just wait for it. Brendan Lichtenberg then making his way through turn 3. Pablo Espes dives down low, and look, there's just no drive from Lichtenberg. The contact's there. Round goes Brendan as he goes into a full washing machine cycle. He'll be dizzy off the end of it. We'll take a look from a little further back. This would be Chris Von der Nessa who would have the look at this. Oh, he had to go down to the inside, but I'd take a look at Espes's perspective of it, because he somehow kept it out of the barriers at 4.
And you talked about the spin cycle. That was the absolute perfect timing for him to sneak underneath there. Yeah, watch this as, yeah, that car was just basically right there when the car moved out of the way, so you can't get much closer than that.
You really can't, and these are the laps that create the most tension and the most pressure. Here, it's a fuel-save game to the end, and these drivers look around and go, it's not just how good am I, it's a case of where am I going to find it, and the next question is going to be, I don't think anyone's going to want to lead this race for the next 15 laps or so.
Yep, I think if you're sitting back around third, fourth, fifth, or sixth, you're in the catbird seat from there. So, interesting note, Tomas Simon. I noticed he was taking repairs in pit lane. I think there was an incident that we had missed, and he was involved in it. So, again, looking a lot like real life, where this narrow pit lane strikes again.
So Tomas Simon, who has been down in the lane, oh, he's actually spun in the lane. He's actually been turned across Nathan Paris.
Ooh. Interesting. Okay, so there's going to be a few hurt feelings over that one. Unfortunately, it's not the way that you want your race to end, in one of the sort of more silly manners that you could wind up out of it here. But again, it is so cramped. You have to keep your wits about you, and unfortunately, in sim racing, it is a bit harder sometimes to be able to tell what your surroundings look like if you've got another car to your side.
And it's worth reminding a lot of people out there that it's the boxes that are ghosted and you don't get contact in. More rather, when you're going around, it's a case that you get the contact when you're in at the transit lane. And it was in the transit lane where the issue happened. Lights off on the pace car. 33 laps to go at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Lap 168 of 200. Jaden Munoz leads them away at Indy.
But how much will Jaden want to lead here? Is he going to immediately allow them by to again save fuel to get to the finish? 33 laps on a stint, doable, but you got to be thinking forward.
You do. You've got to know that everybody is looking at that fuel gauge. Everyone's looking at what they need. And once again, Robert Malechka, the third, moves through. 3 wide, the push, caution immediate.
I could see cars scattering in the background. We had some kind of wreck off of turn 2 here.
Soria's in the wall. That's what I can see. So that's a huge incident that's gone through. I think it's caught Eric O'Connor.
Yeah, it was those two coming together from what I can tell on my screen. Soria, honestly, kind of a little bit of an innocent victim on this one, I feel like. Just was not expecting a bit of a checkup in front of him. And I had mentioned this earlier in the race, Jake. Things happen so fast in these cars. You have absolute split seconds to react to what's happening in front of you.
You absolutely do. I think Soria has tried to do his best Daniel Folkingham impression out there on track as well with the incident with O'Connor. But it does mean a quick cycle. And those fresh tyres, they're not going to be as fresh anymore when you've got to put another heat cycle through them.
But this does save a lot of fuel. This should help out a lot of drivers. So here we go. Oh, yeah, just clipped the wall and wasn't expecting it. Soria just was trying to stay out of the way this whole race. I really can't fault the guy. I know he maybe got on a few people's nerves trying to get his lap back, but you can't blame him for wanting to get back into this race. Big dive down to the inside by a few drivers into the grass to avoid becoming collected.
That was Matthew Zwack keeping out of the way there. Daniel Folkingham. Oh, my goodness. Daniel Folkingham having to go left, right, up, down. He'd have to use the great glass elevator if he was any more needing to try and keep himself out of trouble. But now becomes a very interesting play. Does Van der Sant decide he wants to try and jump in and get tyres? No, he's going to throw the dummy and go out. But there'll be some drivers at the back who will go, yeah, I'll take another set of tyres. I've got nothing to lose. I'll gain a bit of an advantage. Espes is coming in for tyres, as is Zwack, as is Folkingham.
Yeah, just make it that little bit more comfortable on fuel as well. You'll top up. Yeah, it won't be a whole lot, but you'll be for sure good to the end to try and push as much as possible because you just never know when it's going to stay green to the finish.
No, you really don't. And now, suddenly, the lead lap is back again for Daniel Folkingham. So that's a big smile in his book. Matthew Black, of course, also on the lead lap. So they're at the back, and they will try and run through. And to talk the attrition of this race, we've already lost a third of our competitors out there right now. We are down to 20 runners in this field. So when you sit down and look at it like that, that's not many cars by comparison to early on in the race you've got to run through.
Exactly, which means the fewer cars, the likelihood of cautions goes down as well. And for those that have been watching and going, well, how in the world did we go from just maybe one car retiring for the first 60 laps or so to now suddenly so many are out? The farther you go into this race, the more drivers are going to be willing to take risks. And I think we've been seeing that with the number of cautions that have started coming out. this late. Suddenly, it's a lot less give and take. It's so much more take.
Jaden Munoz is on his phone under caution at the Indy 500 fixed here on iRacing. That's mental.
Yeah, it's has to put the glove back on as well and everything. I actually race with fingerless gloves for that reason, in case I ever need to do something like that. But yeah,
wow.
That is certainly a choice.
Well, you got to take a sense of just how important this race is. Zach Sprouse, of course, who took split 32 in time slot 1, getting his 2 bottles of chocolate milk and putting it on top. It goes to show you that this is more than just a race. It's a tradition.
Absolutely. I mean, so one of the private leagues that I cover that runs their own 500, they actually will send the winner an empty milk bottle. It's that important. It's that much a part of it, as that was earlier today, and so was this as well, as Malone comes away with his own win. I'm sure that the chat was going absolutely nuts after that.
Matt Malone all alone picking up the victory at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That is what you would call one truly epic moment for him, as he picked up that all-important yard of bricks win at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We now start ticking over the laps and saying what is left. It's 29 to go at the line, and Robert Malechka III is looking for history here today. He's looking for 3 consecutive broadcast split victories in a row, and if he can hold off the field behind him, he is going to have a smile from ear to ear that he is the best again here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. iRacing sedan pace car is going to pull off left, and Robert Malechka has control from 85 miles an hour. He will start to build the pace when he gets the green. It's in the air, and we're back to running at the Brickyard.
More importantly, it is now a sprint to the finish for our drivers. They are unleashed. Will this mean we can stay green, or is this going to mean that we see so many more incidents here at the finish? Look at them come onto the backstretch. Who is going to go aggressive?
Oh, now we get the Serpentine. Ready for the first time. Munoz, all 4 tyres in the grass. Still keeps the foot in. Goes for it. 3 wide now with Vasquez down low. Oh, my goodness me.
Well, that doesn't bode well if you want it to stay green. Things have kicked up a notch. It is to 11 now, and it's Vasquez who comes away with the lead after that.
How contact! Malechka and Munoz both in the wall. That will bring the caution out, and there's the bit of history gone.
Wow. On the straightaway as well, things just got a little bit too feisty. You gotta be in it to win it there. And yeah, it's go time, but that doesn't mean that it's time for moves like that. You have to stay aware of what's happening around you. And unfortunately, with that being so far up at the front, I think we may have had a few other cars involved too.
Well, Malechka's missing a front wing out there. That much is very, very telling. And the question is, who's trying to keep themselves out there and going? Jaden Munoz is desperately crabbing back along the circuit to try and get himself back. He's got the black and orange mechanical flag. So too Malechka. Look at what happens here. Malechka pinches over. There's contact between them. 2 drivers who don't want to give anything up. Oh, and a hefty hit in the middle.
Yeah, Berryman got a piece of him. Kevin Birrell as well, our lone driver hailing from Club Japan in this race. Here's the onboard. Says, thanks. That's easiest 2 places I've had all day.
Alexander Van der Sant, who has not led a single lap of this race, mind you, now finds himself second with Aaron Vasquez, who is there in position number 1. Peter Berryman, who has had to try and wave around everything out there, is in position. And then the driver in 4th position, who won split 1, time slot 1 over yesterday in the iRacing Indy 500 fixed, now looking to try and get 2 victories in split 1, and we don't often get to hear that, Joe.
Whew. This has really been turned on its head. Vasquez, Van der Sant, Berryman, all very strong in their own right, although, okay, so on this camera angle, I'm not seeing any damage on Berryman, so maybe he got away with just a tiny touch without the car getting hurt by that. Akabuezi, we know, is very, very fast. He's going to be restarting from fourth. Van den Ness, excuse me. We haven't really seen a whole lot of him. What has he got in all of this? And Prada is back in the mix after he was very much up to the lead early in this race.
Well, 3 cars caught out in it. Matthias Orjuela was one of them. Nathan Paris was another who found himself caught out wrong place, wrong time. But ultimately, when tensions flare, the biggest drivers at the front, they all look at it. And Malechka over the radio was not even close to the right time for doing that. He was scornful in the way he thought that incident went with Munoz.
And again, there is so much invested in it. So yeah, tempers are going to boil over in this situation. This means a lot to these drivers. So I don't blame them for that. But we still have to finish this race as well. And the drivers that are still out there are putting that out of their mind. They're focusing on what's in front of them and what the end of this race is going to look like. Look at how small the field is now.
Jason Brophy over the radio, one of his front wheels is damaged. I think that would have been with the pinball that went along the front stretch. Matthias Orjuela, I think, was the car that got into him, Joe.
Yeah. And I understand that Van de Sant maybe is trying to save a little bit on fuel. So maybe driver's not as strong as we thought on this one. Would have thought by now they'd be easily good to go to the finish, but maybe a few just having to stretch it that little bit more. Zwack, of course, is the one that's appreciating this the most, because this eliminates many cars out from in front of him, on top of him now back in the hunt on fuel.
Well, it's 3 straight cautions that have brought this together for Matthew Zwack. So he's down in 15th position, and he is smiling from ear to ear at the moment. You look at some of these drivers changing, they're going to be great. And if you think that this is turning up into an absolute climax of a fantastic race, there's more. We're doing one more in 1 week's time. Indy 500 open setup. They've got free reign to work with this Dallara IR18. You'll want to join us for that one. 1 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. GMT, 6 p.m. BST. You want to be in the mix for that. Aaron Vasquez at the front of this field. We'll have 25 laps to go when we rejoin to racing, and he's being chased by Van der Sant, Berryman and Akabuezi behind. It's a case of who can stave off with all of this pressure to go through. In goes the pace car. Vasquez will wait for the green flag to drop, and then when he gets that launch, which he does, we're underway at Indianapolis again.
We saw how things were last time down the backstretch. It's a slightly different group of players, a few of the same faces. Will we see things get as aggressive? And I tell you what, Akabuezi says, yeah, I'm starting to try to make the pass through 1 and 2. Berryman, though, carries the speed. Here we go again, Jake.
Pins it down for the Serpentine. Nowhere to go for Fondanessa, who tries to go through. Berryman up top, looking for 3 wide at turn 3. And Vasquez down on the low side, covers off what he needs to. Berryman still stuck up high, trying to get the run here through 4. But ultimately now, it's about drive, it's about purpose. And now look at Vasquez try and give Van der Sant a little bit of slipstream. Berryman tries to pinch him off.
This is an entirely different race than what we have been watching all this entire day. And everybody is on it 110% from here. There's going to be no quarter asked nor given.
Absolutely not. And keep an eye on those 2 WSR Esports butt kicker cars back there in 6th and 7th of Ferguson and Prada. They could quietly bring themselves in. Vasquez and Berryman side by side. How many times has Peter Berryman been close to winning this race and not finding it? He's got arguably the most talented sim racer of his generation in front of him in Aaron Vasquez, who now moves over to the left-hand side, and Berryman tries to pick up a pinch, just enough room with Van der Sant, and now around the outside of 1 goes Berryman.
Got to be very careful about shutting that door. Van der Sant had a huge head of steam, and it gets down to the end. There might be a case where he does not choose to lift coming up to the back of that 11 car. In fact, I think of these top 3, I'd watch out for Van der Sant, because they'll be so focused on each other, he could steal a march on them.
and so too could Hamilton Akablasi, who now looks down the inside of Van der Sant from Club Indiana. He looks around and sees the move then that goes through. Can't quite get into line. There's the help back down to defend by Vasquez and Berryman. So Akablasi will move up to third. Here comes Fondanessa now. Van der Sant starting to drop a little bit back into this group, and that is all about placement. We keep talking about placement being important, stuck on the outside of two.
He's going to be able to chop across, though, so that works out well for him as Fondanessa has to back out of it. Berryman's been trying this time after time, gets the run, goes for the outside. Doesn't seem like the outside is working at turn 3. I think he's going to have to start experimenting rather than trying to repeat this same move over and over.
Well, they say that if you're going to try expecting the same results of that, it's the sign of madness. Here comes Hamilton Akablasi to the outside, and the pole sitter moves back to the point with a big move on the outside.
And what did I just say? Yeah, Peter did a great job. He cut back underneath and he got the speed, but by the time he did that, both were vulnerable. Again, third place has an excellent opportunity to really just blindside those two at the very front. It is going to be so difficult to pick where you want to be at the end of this race to try and come away with the win.
And now looking here at fourth position, here comes Chris Fondanessa, then the Dutch driver looking to try and make some progress, and the likes of the legacy of Arie Luyendyk comes to mind with Fondanessa trying to chase. Peter Berryman now looks to make that change and finally gets his number of P1.
So these top 3 do look like they're starting to pull away. Van der Sant could try and reel them back in, but he's losing touch a little bit now. 20 laps to go. Lots of time for this to change still. When it gets down to 10, you do not want that gap.
You really don't. You don't want to be stuck with a lot of work to do in the final stages of a race like this, a sprint like this, to the line at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You look around at these drivers posturing and gesturing, but where do I want to be late? Where do I want to position? Berryman looking back down to the inside, over the yard of bricks and over at turn number 1. Thank you very much, Lee. I'll take that position number 1 again, but they're trying to keep the other drivers at bay. Keep it as simple as possible. Don't let Vasquez in, don't let Van der Sant in, and back in 10th position it's getting busy as well. You've got Dallara and Ojuela out there at this moment in time with Espes Manfredotti and Kevin Birrell.
Akablasi is going to take the lead back once again down into turn 3. With less than 20 laps to go, the entire field that's on the lead lap are separated by less than 4 seconds. This has become an incredibly close one here at the end of this race after it's spread out so far, and Berryman's going to go for another move back to the front.
Back to the inside, 18 laps to go here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And with victory on the mind, Berryman knows that he's been in this position before. He's looked around at drivers who say that they can be up at the very top. Akablasi is there in second, Vasquez third, Van der Sant sits quite happily with Fondanessa in 5th position, starting to drop that time now to about half a second, 6/10. And the longer that those gaps go, the top 5 right now are looking at this thinking, well, everyone else is completely out the picture.
Absolutely. So this is going to be a lot of fun to watch, to see how each of them tries to work it out down to the end of this race. Where do you place yourself? Remember, they do not have the opportunity for a restart if the yellow comes out on lap 197 or later. That will lock in the positions and end the race.
It certainly will. That's the danger zone out there that they see as they go through. Akablasi again to the point at turn 3. Now starts to sit himself up. Vasquez now, I think, just biding his time, not wanting to go overly aggressive, not wanting to showcase that he's got bigger intentions than what he's got at the moment. Van der Sant has been very quiet in that 4th place, and now they're keeping this as a game of only one car in this field will make moves into turn 1, and that's Peter Berryman.
Peter seems very determined to bring this one home, and he's been aggressively trying to get himself back up to the front. Did Vasquez hit the wall there?
Oh, he was close. He was very close. He was pretty much on the limit that you could get to without touching the wall there, but I think he's got away with one as he now looks to go on through. Still, though, you sit there with Akabuezi making that point, but Vasquez here might start to get restless, and if you lull yourself into a false sense of security, it's very easy to have contact like that. Into fifth gear, into sixth gear, and you'll see at the end of the straights, they'll flick back down into fifth, Joe, because it's slightly quicker to do so.
All of them looking to try and use that fifth gear, that lower gear, to really launch off the corner. That's going to be so important come the end of the race. Having that speed coming off the turn to be able to slipstream past your rival. This is all a game of chicken. Who can be in front at the right time?
15 laps to go. It will be 14 at the line. There's one car that's making progress. It's Matthias Orjuela, who's now moved himself back up to 11th and will be eyeing the top 10. So he might be the only car who's gone out there, got a fresh set of tyres after the contact at the last yellow. Big defence, blocks a throw. Vasquez now having a huge block for Van der Sande. He wants that P3.
You got to be so careful with that stuff. I know you want to blunt the momentum of your rival, but again, if they don't lift at the right time, you can take both of you out. Look at what happened to two of our potential winners just earlier in this race, taking each other out on a straightaway.
It happens, and they will try and heed the warnings, the parable of Malechka and Munoz, which happened earlier on in this race. But now as they hit with 13 laps to go, look at the gap that defensive move has made. It's now 0.6 of a second for Vasquez to try and claw back, and now he's going to have to be at his level best. Berryman again makes that move at turn one. We'll see that quite a bit. At what point does the alliance break?
I'm going to guess that that's going to be somewhere around 5 laps to go, maybe even earlier than that. But Vasquez now needs to really hustle that car. Akabuezi, Berryman working together to try and pull away. You can see Van der Ness and Prada also trying to catch back up along with Van der Sande.
Well, look at the work that Aaron Vasquez is able to do. Van der Sande is just having a bucket of dirty air poured on top of him like it's a cold shower right now. He can't keep the same pace as that in front of Aaron Vasquez, who's using all of his relative experience out there to absolute perfection. But still, it's those two in front right now. Peter Berryman, who has been a nearly man so often, but has had himself victories in open wheel before. He was a winner of the Turn Racing Grand Prix iRacing Series, believe it or not. But now he looks as Akabuezi moves down through onto the inside. Easy as you like. This is a game of I'll wait for a chance, and there will be chances late.
Coming down to 11 to go at this stage. The nerves got to be building inside the cockpit, but you got to stay cool, calm, and collected. You cannot let the adrenaline make the decisions for you. You have to be objective out there.
You really do, in terms of where you go and sit, in terms of where you go and understand. And for the moment, they are doing a great job of making this the simplest race at the moment. A hand-to-hand combat battle between Akabuezi and Berryman. And that is a look at how it looked yesterday in split one for Hamilton Akabuezi. And he wants exactly the same again.
And he go back-to-back there, as he's so close to doing so today. He's in the right position. They're still at about 0.7 ahead of Vasquez, just holding him at bay at this stage. Now officially 10 to go, 25 miles.
Just 25 miles. It sounds like nothing when you put it on paper for the amount of work that they've tried to put in, but there is still a lot to go through, and there are twists in the tail still yet to be played right now. To turn 3, once again they go, and Hamilton Akabuezi once more takes his station at the front. It's what he does so well at this moment in time. He's got the critical juncture here, but it's up to Peter Berryman, I would say, to decide whether he goes through at turn 1 or not. Under 10 now, 9 laps to go. Berryman to the inside.
Just back and forth pretty much every single straightaway at this point. They don't know when and if a caution might come. They don't know what's going to happen. Maybe their rival would just clip the wall, and that would finally give them a chance to break away. You can't risk it. You have to try and get to the front at all times possible at this stage, and that's what we are seeing. But Vasquez trying to catch them back up. I think he's gotten about a 10th this last lap.
Yeah, he's there at about 7/10 of a second off of the lead. He's agonizingly close, doing 41.1s on the last lap, and as he crosses the stripe, 41.1 again, and it's 41.1s and 2s here for these drivers in front who know that Vasquez is going to try and slowly bring himself into this battle, and if he can bring himself in, this is big. We're heading to the danger zone laps of 197 to 199 here on 193. It's still the same old story that we've seen for the last 10 laps.
Remember, no green-white checkers. This does not go by NASCAR rules. This is IndyCar. If we get a yellow, that ends the race. That's why we keep talking about lap 197. And there's the caution now.
Oh, that's going to change a lot late on. And it's Pablo Espes who is demolished into the wall at turn 4. He's come out of 3, all on his own. Got loose. Goodbye.
So this will bunch them all up, but I don't think it changes it too dramatically, other than now Vasquez, Van de Sant, Van den Nessa are all able to become involved in it a little bit better than they were before. This is what, probably going to be about a 4-lap shootout? I think it should restart us within the danger zone.
And that is going to be an alert that will be the final caution of the race. That will impact. There will be one more restart. Espes then finding trouble, understeering through, tags the wall, bang, into the wall, pretty much at the Scott Dixon place.
Yeah, and I mean, there's not much he could have done in that situation. Once it clipped the wall, it was on a trajectory and basically took almost all 4 corners off the thing, so he was scraping along the tub. The brakes aren't slowing him down. He's just along the ride, so you can't blame him for bringing out the yellow. It was a simple mistake.
It very much was. Espes is pushing, and ultimately, when you're going deep in the stint, now becomes a game. Who takes tyres? Because this is going to be about 3 or 4 laps. If you've got tyres, use them. And I would say everybody behind Matthew Zwack has decided they want tyres. That's a split call.
Yeah, just a few. I don't think the tires will mean enough, especially if you're coming from that far back. Remember, we're looking at, 4, maybe 3 laps on the restart for this one. So it's going to be tight to try and be able to utilize that. I think this is more about where you position yourself to try and slipstream and slingshot by your rivals.
Well, they've been on these tyres since 37 laps to go. When the caution came out and they had to play the fuel save game, of the leaders leaving the pits right now, Matthew Zwack is best placed, followed by Jason Brophy and then Daniel Folkingham. Those 3 are going to be the ones who will try and chase down the order, and we are down to just 15 runners on the leading lap. They've only got to get by 12, 13 and 14 respectively, but they are going to have very little time to do so, and now it's going to be about who is going to be the most aggressive. And I look at car 7, and he is aggression personified.
Yeah, we know that Vasquez is unafraid to try and get his nose in there, so I think he's going to be one to watch out for. But I feel like Berryman is also tired of winding up the bridesmaid in these ones. He's going to try and make this an all or nothing. He wants that win, and he's not going to be denied this time. He could be more dangerous than anything to try and watch out for, as we are coming around with, I think, 1 to go this next time by. So yeah, I believe it will be a 4-lap sprint to the finish.
And you look around at some of those drivers who maybe haven't shown any teeth so far in this race, Joe. I look around at Van der Sant, Van den Nessa, Prada, Ferguson. Will they be able to get their teeth out and say this isn't a teddy bear's picnic?
Exactly. Everybody who gets kind of bunched back up to it, they know they've got a really good chance at trying to take the win here. It's enough laps that they could try and make aggressive moves, get up to the front. It's highly unlikely, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but now it's about patience. From the pole today, from winning split number 1 in time slot 1 yesterday, Hamilton Akabuezi now has 4 laps in car number 4 to hold off the rest of the field. Peter Berryman, Aaron Vasquez, Alexander Van der Sant, Chris Fondanessa, who is there as well in fifth, and all of the contenders behind who want to prove what they've got. Joe, I hate to say this, but pick a winner.
I'm going to have to go with Berryman, I think, on this one. I feel like he's been aggressively trying to keep his car in the front at any and all possible point. I feel like we're going to get a yellow, and Berryman will be in the right position.
Right place, right time. Will it fall the way that prophecy foretells? If you want to be a legend out there, this is the critical juncture. Heroes are made in this section. Are you crushed to dust, or are you a diamond? Here's the pace car of the iRacing sedan pace car. Moves down into the pits. Hamilton Akabuezi has control. One final time. 4 laps at the line at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We are green again for the last time.
Hamilton got a good jump, but that's not going to mean a whole lot. It's really the back straightaway that's going to tell the tale. Remember, if we get a yellow from here, that ends the race.
Well, that's where they look. Van der Sant moving to the outside, trying to find a move. And there goes Akabuezi down low. Berryman up high now, looks to try and take that position away. Vasquez with the power, now looks to move up top. He starts searching for a chance now. Berryman and Vasquez side by side at 3.
Holding that high side, we've seen the momentum sometimes work, but he's just a little bit too high on entry. He has to lift out of it big time. That hurt Vasquez, and he is now going to lose out to Akabuezi, who's got the run. But both of them try to use that. Oh, and again, you got to lift down into turn 1 with the block.
There was just not enough room, and that was so clever from Vasquez to just take just enough away at that point. Akabuezi has to lift out of turn 1. There goes Akabuezi down into the wall. We stay green. We stay green. Does it come back onto circuit? Yes, it does for Akabuezi. Caution's out. Peter Berryman wins the Indy 500 fix.
Wow. I did not expect it coming from P2 and P3 wrecking each other out, but I called it. Berryman was in the right place at the right time. He gets the 2 to go signal here, and he has got to be the most relieved man in all of sim racing right now.
I tell you what, Peter Berryman is going to have a smile from ear to ear. Mark Tranter is in his ear at the moment, and he is going to have a smile beaming wide. And the Apex Racing team, who have worked so hard for so many years to try and put themselves in this position, to give themselves this result, to say that this is their opportunity. Finally, they can say they've got that, and that little wiggle of acknowledgement says it all on the straight. I've got it. I've got what I've come here to set out to do so many times before. And Peter Berryman may go down as one of the most underrated sim racing talents the world has ever seen, but no more.
You don't want to win it under yellow, but a win is a win. And Peter knew how important it was to be up at the front of this one. I think that's why we saw him fighting so hard to try and hold on to that. Honestly, that move down the front straightaway may be what won him the race, blunting the momentum of those two behind him.
Yeah, and that was the key. Akabuezi and also there Aaron Vasquez looked at each other. Both wanted glory. Neither of them wanted to give an inch to each other. That's why there was contact and a final caution. And this will be one final lap. Barney with the yellow will also have the white flag out and say there is one final lap of the bricks. And for the moment here of Peter Berryman, he will savour this up because you got to drink it in. It's one of the greatest feelings when you know you've got that victory in the bag. Chris Fondanessa will get himself second place. Lucas Prado will be on the podium. And Joe, this is how it went down.
Yeah, just barely getting loose off of one another. And because that car bounced back onto the racetrack, that's why we had that yellow, unfortunately. If he would have stayed in the grass, we actually could have seen this one finish out.
Yeah, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles there. That bounce comes through and creates so much drama there for everybody out there on track. Everyone tried to avoid it, but ultimately it's just a case of a couple laps short. Hamilton Akabuezi was hoping to go and get 2-time splits today. It didn't work out. You look at Robert Malechka III, who today, 25 laps from the end, could not get RM3 Pete into position here today. But you look around at a driver who was up near the front for the majority of this race, kept himself quiet in terms of the way he needed to deliver on his momentum, kept himself in the right place at the right time, avoided all of the dramas that befell those around him, and then said at the point where he needed to be at his level best, I'll be at the front, you guys behind me, just look behind. This is going to be potentially the sweetest victory of his long and storied sim racing career. Peter Berryman will make his way to the yard of bricks and officially now will become an iRacing Indy 500 fixed champion.
I can only imagine how loud he is yelling in his sim rig right now. 200 laps working towards that, 500 miles to be able to have the wreath and the milk and to be able to come home to say, no one can take this away from him. I am a top split winner in the iRacing Indy 500 fixed.
It's a huge, huge win for Peter Berryman. He knows how much it will mean to him and the entire team. I know Alex Simpson will be incredibly pleased at the result there by Peter Berryman and the long and storied history of the Apex Racing team that has been at the top of sim racing for so long. This is a marquee result for them to pick up that result, and we will get confirmation of result in the next few moments as he now runs around, and I'm sure, Joe, that there will be a lot there. Move of the race, though, to get this pass done. I think we've just about missed it out there, but here it comes. It's this move right now where he's having to fight so hard with the likes of Aaron Vasquez, and he just had to pin it down. Vasquez getting caught off of the rubbered side of the circuit, and then the gap opens up.
Exactly. That him managing to keep it pinned down, like you said, through turn 4 really made the difference. And then we saw as well the follow-up to that where his two rivals thought they had a run, but he just positioned himself perfectly to force them to have to lift as he burns it down on the yard of bricks.
He will spin it as long as he likes, very much to the very successful snooker career that he had as a junior as well. Very similar to that. He will spin and spin and spin out there. Peter Berryman in car number 11 gets the job done. In all, it took 2 hours, 39 minutes and 20 seconds to get the victory sorted, with Chris Fondanessa back in second place. Lucas Prada will make it a podium there for him in third, with Alexander van der Sant in fourth position. Daniel Ferguson was trying to play the fuel game today. Fifth he will get for his efforts out there, with Alessandro Bico and Kevin Birrell sixth and seventh. Matthias Orjuela would make moves to eighth, ninth for Matthew Zwack, and Lorenzo Manfredotti will take a top 10 for his troubles here today, Joe.
Fellow Cincinnatian Lucas Lodato going to come home with an 11th in the top split. How about Jason Brophy coming back and managing 12th today, with Falkingham as well recovering from some craziness and finishing 13th. Aaron Vasquez in P14. And then from there, we already get to the attrition with Akabuezi. You've got Lichtenberg 4 laps down, still running at the end. Paris in 17th, Espez in P18, and then we get to the DNFs with Munoz, Malechka, and all who follow.
Yeah, there are some names of those who are trying to get back into this race. Tamash Simon had his issues. The 9 lives of Pedro Palladino that were ran out. The very, very sad end to the race for Jacob Oster, who could have challenged at the end of this race. Otis Lawrence will be ruining his issues. Michael Berg and Brendan Clough found themselves in Cautionsville as well. And the 2 drivers of Julian Klaffenbach and Adriano Pinheiro, the last drivers who find themselves out, along with Lucas Lindqvist, who was 31st by classification, heading over to the line. Simply put, Joe, one of the most beautiful scenes of racing that we have had, and some wonderful action that we've been able to put together here on the board. But the best thing about it is that once you win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you are immortalized forever. And live, we've got ourselves a look at all the splits that are out there. Konstantin Soldatov has got 2 wins out there over the course of this run, but still a number of splits to be decided.
Absolutely. Definitely a few names in there that seem familiar to me. Garrett Conrath, I think I've seen racing before as well. So we'll wait to see as these start to trickle in who is able to come home. Obviously, there are multiple winners each and every time slot every year, but that doesn't make it any less special for you to win yours.
No, you've got 45 different winners that are going to come from this time race out there, and we're going to take a look over to split fours action at the moment, which is still very much in the midst of the racing action that we can see, and a bit of green flag running that we've got, and the gap starting to show here, Joe.
Yeah, look at how spread out it is in comparison to what we were watching before. So sort of an opposite, I think, of what we had, where it was all loaded to the end. We're front loaded probably on this one, I'm going to guess, on the yellows, which means it is down to drivers basically starting to spread out as it goes on. We're hearing this is actually split 9 that we're watching currently.
Yep, so 9th split right now, and it's a very interesting situation here where you've got a tandem of 2 and a tandem of 2 which find themselves out at the front of this field. So I would say it's a very different race to what we've currently got here at the moment. The chase very much in a different scenario, and look at the difference maker that was going to be. We head over to split 4 right now, where it's definitely a lot closer than what we've seen previously, and now you're seeing here these late laps being thrown in. Still a little bit of serpentine through, but just 7 cars there in a trade shows you the attrition factor.
Yeah, and think about this as well, that if you said split 4 to most people, they'd say, oh, that's not really that important. Remember, 45 splits at the same time. You have to be phenomenally fast to do this. And we've got 2 laps to go with at least one driver needing to pit as it is down to the end of it. And that actually helps them out tremendously, breaking that slipstream.
It certainly does, and with 2 laps remaining, you start thinking about that victory. You start thinking about how close you are to that, how sweet it feels. And again, trying to break that toe and do so once more. Look at the gap that's there. It's going to take a miracle to close this down, Joe.
Yeah, I think that's a bit too far. That's the best thing that could have happened to our leader here, is that driver behind having to pit in, unable to make it on fuel, just cutting it a bit too tight. And this is so tantalizing. You see the white flag. No, he did that last time, just faking into the pits, maybe trying to break the slipstream with the Dragon.
Oh, it's as late can be. You've got to be so careful when you do that to go up and try and get a result like that on the board. But now trying to drive through turn number 2, get that launch. Look at that gap. It's come down for this as they go through. And still there's more, Joe.
Nara leads this race. He's closing in on him. He's got to be so careful to the line because he could snipe it. It's difficult, but it is possible.
Well, Nara's got a hold, and this is going to be an all-important stage of turn number 4. That drive to the yard of bricks. There's still about 4 car lengths in it, 3 car lengths in it. Trying to get that shake, and bake. Look at that. That's how you hold at Indy.
Nicely done by Nara there in the number 14. Ginter tried to chase him home. He at least kept him honest all the way to the finish.
Yeah, and that honesty policy was very much in play, and we've still got more great sim racing. They go down to 45 splits, you know, so we're going to be seeing here a lot of racing that has gone and found itself on the wrong side, now looking to push, and now you're getting the sense of lap traffic that's bringing itself in play, and the big, strong battles that they're having towards the end as we go back to split 9.
Yep, battle for the lead. Third place trying so hard to catch back up. Connor McCullough there trying to keep up with Scott and Ponce for that top spot. And actually, I'm not sure if that's even accurate because I'm showing 9 seconds between them on our timing and scoring here. So actually, I'm guessing that Scott is far up the road. We're looking at either a different battle or lapped cars.
Yeah, I would assume that's Adam Thompson, who's there in front with Juan Alba and Casper Vold, who is just down the road. So Jomi Scott right now has a monster margin, and you dream of margins like this so late on in the race. This is a wonderful bit of gap that is held at the moment, and so with Ponce in second, this is very much a case of looking at like Alexander Rossi, for example, and the way that he got close and won back in the day. So you're talking about this being a huge margin of 9 seconds.
This is how the 500s used to look back in the day. They weren't always, runs to the line as they tend to be these days. It used to be that you see drivers that would finish sometimes even laps ahead if you go back many decades. But yeah, 9 seconds is the absolute ideal. 5 laps to go. All he's doing from here is just focus on each and every turn and just turn in, avoid the exit, cruise to the finish.
The only thing in a scenario like this, Joe, that I would have a worry if I was in Jeremy Scott's position is I would panic if something happens with Adam Thompson there in front. If there is any form of contact out there from him or any of the lap down cars which are in and around at this stage, I would be in absolute fear of being too close.
He doesn't seem to be too afraid. He's not backing out. I mean, he has those 9 seconds. If he really wanted to, he could. And this is Split 9. If you're just joining us, we've already finished top split coverage here in the Indy 500 fixed for iRacing. But down to only 4 laps to go, 10 miles to come home to the milk.
And now this is where you start looking down. Am I still turning the same way that I did earlier on in the race? Are my tyres still good in the way that I'm working? Do I find myself through each and every single corner holding the steering wheel a little bit heavier out there? That is the question that keeps itself found.
So as we watch them through these final few laps, understand that we might have a chance to chat with our winner, Jake.
Yeah, we certainly will do. Peter Berryman is here alongside now. And Peter, a win that is so sweet for you. The amount of hours, the amount of years you have tried to get yourself to this point to say that you're a victor. You've had an opportunity to soak it in. And what does that mean for you and the team that you're racing from right now at the Apex Racing team to finally say you've got an opportunity to say you are an Indy 500 winner?
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. I don't think it's properly sunk in yet, but yeah, I'm so happy. I know how hard these things are to win. I mean, it's only my second attempt in the fixed 500, but yeah, I know plenty well how difficult these races are, and yeah, I feel so happy. I feel a lot happier than some of the races I've done. I've won a lot of money, but yeah, this is definitely up there for one of the best wins that I've had. Yeah, I'm over the moon.
It very nearly found itself with disaster with about 25 laps to go, with the likes of Malechka and Munoz there in front of you. It had to take some quick reactions to get yourself out of the way of that. So talk us through that entire caution section from about 35 to go to getting to the checkered flag.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty stressful. From inside the car, the race changed. It must have changed 3 or 4 times with the cautions. It was, at one point, everyone was flat out to the end, so it was just, a straight up battle from there. Then there was a caution, it turned into a fuel save. Then it went back and forth between fuel saving and being able to go flat out. I felt like I had myself in a good position to go flat out, and I had the fuel and things like that. But yeah, during the crash, to be honest, I was more focused on the car to my left and slightly behind me. And then all of a sudden I look forward and I see a car sideways, so yeah, a bit of a change of underwear needed after that one, to be honest. Luckily the caution was there. I could sort of get the heart rate back down and sort of gather myself. But I think once we were sort of top 3, I sort of knew I had it in me to get the win from there. So yeah, I had belief.
Jeremy Scott will come to the line and pick the victory up in Split 9 of the iRacing Indy 500 at a canter. But Peter, it's a victory that obviously means a lot to you. You had Mark Tranter, who was there in your ears. What's the support system like for you over at Apex? How important it's been for you? And the final question, which is even more crucial, what type of milk?
So I'll start off by obviously thanking Mark. Mark was huge, having him in the ear. He's very good with the strategy stuff and keeping me calm, making sure we know what the situation is. And I think a bigger thanks has to go out to Brandon Trino. The fact that I've been able to pick everything up so quickly is all pretty much down to him. He's sort of taught me everything he can in a short space of time. So yeah, I'm glad that I could sort of put that to good use and get the win out of it. As for milk, it has to be whole milk. I think anything else is a crime in my opinion. So yeah, full fat.
Well, there you have it. Peter Berryman, a smile from ear to ear, a Indy 500 fixed winner at Top Split and Broadcast. An absolutely sensational result to see there. We do have more drivers through. Joe Peak has managed to catch up with Alex van der Sant.
Alex winding up with a fourth place, but you were definitely in the hunt for pretty much the entire race. I mean, talk about trying to navigate all the changes in that race. As we heard even Peter Berryman say, it felt like there were 3 different races going on.
Yeah, that was tough. A lot of fuel saving, especially at the start. Then I kind of just got stuck in that second pack. And from there, it's not much you can do. But caution saved me. Just from there, I was just working my way up, gaining time on the yellow flag stops and the green flag stops. I executed those really well today. Then by the end, just hang on, get spots in the restarts and don't give them away like I did. And I ended up with some front wing damage, about 13 to go, and so it just not. I couldn't do anything in traffic from there. It was just about hanging, and then kind of sealed the deal there. So I'm happy with fourth. I had a lot of fun, made some great moves, but it was so close. But yeah.
And you and Eric O'Connor were the 2 Hoosiers representing. What does it mean coming in as a part of Club Indiana at the biggest race in the state and sometimes the world?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've grown up with Indy, been to 20 or 19 Indy 500s in person, and another one in a few weeks here. So yeah, being able to get just a piece of that on the simulator is great. It's really cool that the community that iRacing has created and built around this. Shout out to everybody in the community. I was with everybody on Power Slide. I know Hamilton almost got it today. Rob, Brendan was up there. It was a solid day for everybody until right at the end.
Well, and while it wasn't a win, you do have the Open coming up in a week's time. Do you take anything away from this towards that?
Yeah, I think just it's about getting in the zone and knowing, maybe getting an idea of what the conditions will be. I think we have dynamic weather for the next one, so that does change things. But getting a feel, just if anything's changed with the track, getting a sense of what you need to do with qualifying. So that's next, open qual. But definitely looking forward to it.
I can only imagine open qualifying going to be even more nerve-wracking. That was fourth place, Alex van der Sant. Jake?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic work as they go on through. We got a whole bunch of amazing action coming up. And of course, 7 days from now, there is no better place to come back to, well, right here again, the Brickyard, where we're going to be having the iRacing Indy 500 again. This time with the open setup, this time with opportunities to say you built it the best, you drove it the best, you are the best when it comes to the iRacing Indy 500. You can catch it only with us on iRacing on YouTube and Twitch, and you can catch it at 1 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. GMT. So mark it down if you haven't had the chance to and get yourself involved with that. The next special event after that is the Coke 600, Joe, May 21st to May 26th. And I tell you what, those 5 days will be some of the most grueling for sim racers.
Exactly. I'm sure there's drivers that are going to be, quote, doing the double, trying to do both of them. And it's going to be just as hard as it is in real life to try and be competitive at both of them. Just thankfully, you don't have to get on a helicopter to try and do that. And of course, the NASCAR Coke Series finds the eNASCAR Coke Series finds itself racing at Charlotte for a little bit shorter than the 600 miler. Jake?
They certainly do, but at 8 p.m. Eastern, after the break that they've had, you can join us May 20th for that, as they look to try and tackle the second third, I should say, of the season, knowing just how important it is to get a win and be in the NASCAR playoffs out there. Your fields are all set. They've all got victories found towards it. And look around at some of the names that have managed to stamp themselves in with a piece of history. Peter Berryman, who leads them all, the likes of Tobias Nara that we had a look at, and Jomi Scott. But there are some very talented drivers like AJ Green, for example, who I've seen around in the oval scene do a very good job. And you look around, it's not just 20 drivers out there, it's 45 who have picked up the victory, Joe, as we look down names like Dylan Bam, for example, picking up the highest strength of field victory of the racing.
Yeah, and that is probably its own bit of feather in his cap, no doubt. All these drivers putting in so much work to get where they are and to be able to come home at the end, even at the lowest split, the lowest iRating split or the slowest qualifying split. Those drivers deserve the kudos and deserve to celebrate here at this special event. That's the whole point of these iRacing special events, that you get to live out that dream that you've always wanted, that you could compete in the Indy 500. It sounds like we got one more to talk to, though, Jake.
We certainly do. He finished second position today, found himself in and around the points, and found himself there in play. Chris Fondanessa joins us right now. Chris, a race for you which ultimately ends up with P2, which you can be happy about, but finding yourself in and around, trying to snake around, looking for an opportunity to win. How difficult was it today for you, knowing just the caliber and talent of the drivers that were around you?
Yeah, it was insane. Like, I qualified P11, I believe. I completely didn't expect to be up there, and to be fighting with these people is just insane. Like, I know a lot of people put so much practice into it, and it's a shame to see people like Hamilton that, I mean, look at his lap times in qualifying. He was fast all week, won the top split, I believe, the first one. And then, yeah, to have such a finish is a shame, but to end up P2, I mean, I'm without words.
You're without words, and you had such a wonderful run of things here today. Very, very quickly, what do you look at now in terms of where you go to for next racing that comes along in a week?
I mean, I haven't really worked that much on setups. I know there's a lot of stuff I don't know yet, so I'm gonna give it a shot and see where we end up. But I'm not expecting too much yet, but we'll see. We'll see where we end up.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Chris Fondanessa joining us then and picking up a second place here today in the iRacing.com Indy 500 fixed out there. Joe, it's been an absolute treat to see such amazing sim racing action out there, and the best of the best came to town to play. Many walked in thinking they had a shot, but ultimately it's one driver who always walks out as victor.
It's the nature of racing. You can only have that one winner, especially at a race like this. And you could tell how much it means to Peter Berryman. He even said, I've won money, but this one, it means that so much more special moment.
It absolutely does. It's a race unlike any other when it comes to the iRacing tradition. It's the Indy 500 fixed, and it is, of course, the fifth running that we've just been able to find that conclusion with, to go and join yourself with names like Graham Carroll, Philip Kraus, Casey Kerwin, and Robert Malechka III. It's a case of welcome to the pantheon of greats. Peter Berryman at his brilliant best, and he will join the best of the best here in the iRacing Hall of Fame.